Japan and the US have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change. On a visit to Tokyo, US climate change envoy John Kerry spoke with Japanese government officials ahead of the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow later this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Looking today at the crackdown in China on video games. The government in Beijing has announced that Chinese gamers under the age of 18 will only be allowed to play 1 hour a day on Fridays, weekends and public holidays, and only between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening. The move comes a few weeks after one of the country's leading newspapers, a mouthpiece of the ruling Communist Party, described video games as spiritual opium. So what will the impact of the restrictions be on the gaming industry? Will Guyot is FSN's tech reporter.
The Chinese games market generates an estimated $46 billion of revenue every year. But this crackdown has been heard all around the world. We've had companies like Ubisoft, the video games company, they lost around 5% of their share price when this news was announced. We've also heard of Chinese gaming stocks sliding. The big concern here is that because so many Chinese people play games, you've got 62.5% of under 18 Chinese minors playing games online. There's going to be it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the weeks and months ahead.
Facial recognition is expected to be used to impose the ban. The restrictions are a big gamble by the Chinese government and could fuel opposition from many young gamers. The main news again, President Biden has offered a full-throated defense of his decision to withdraw US forces from Afghanistan. European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover in Kabul. And Japan and the United States have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change in talks designed to prepare for the COP26 conference in Glasgow later this year. There's more from us on Twitter @FeatureStory. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Facing mounting criticism that lethal injection is cruel and outdated, Ohio has replaced it with a system that quickly and humanely rips off the heads of death row inmates using powerful robotic arms. The new device is designed to be as humane as possible, emitting soothing white noise and putting prisoners on a cushioned seat before its metallic talons dig into their necks and painlessly wrench their heads off. Ohio Department of Corrections Director Gary Moore praised the machine, saying, quote, "Our new system is a hallmark of compassion. Now these deaths will be pain-free because the machine's claws are coated with topical anesthetic." Quickly pulling off a prisoner's head is considered less cruel than lethal injection, which requires 3 separate chemicals. And Ohio isn't the only state changing the way it handles capital punishment. Last month, Texas unveiled the Machinator, which humanely squishes up to 50 prisoners at once. Coming up next, is anything valuable buried in the woods behind my house? Our team of investigators finds out.
This is the Onion News Network. Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live, the talk show that you're invited to call in and take control of the airwaves, talk about whatever's important to you. 603-283-6160 is the number if you want to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Aria,
Ian, and Conan.
And we've got updates from Australia. Evidently, they have a new horrifying surveillance bill that was rushed through their parliament in under 24 hours. A trucker protest going on there, as well as one that's starting in the United States. But I want to talk about Candyman because I saw it advertised on YouTube several weeks ago, and then I, of course, forgot about it because I have other things to do. But I love horror movies, and evidently horror movies remain one of the most profitable genres at the box office, and that's evidently always been true.
Really?
Evidently. Well, it doesn't take a lot of money.
Because it's cheap to make them. Ooh, that makes a lot of sense. And people like to go, and that's something you want to watch in the theaters and be scared with other people in the crowd.
That's what this article says, but I don't get that appeal to it. I don't want to go see it in theaters because I want to be, terrified with other people. I just want to go see it there because that's the only way to see it at the moment.
Well, maybe there's safety in numbers.
So what, you did go to the theater?
I have not seen it yet.
Oh, okay.
But now that I've remembered that it exists, I've made a note to go and see it probably Thursday night.
You'll have to let me know if they let you in without a mask.
Are they requiring masks again?
I have no idea. I mean, I haven't been there since last summer when you and I tried
Back to the Future event. Yeah. So movie after movie, Hollywood's recent blockbusters have struggled to bounce back to 2019 ticket level sales. But Candyman once again proved what a profit driver the horror genre is. And it's called just Candyman, which sort of upset me, given that it's a sequel to the 1992 film. But evidently it's not really a sequel. It's part remake, part sequel sort of thing, which is...
They do a lot of that these days.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but okay.
So had you seen the original one?
I think so, unless there's been a remake of the original since. Then yes, I've seen the original.
Apparently,
it looks like there were, so there's 92, which is called Candyman.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And then in 95 there was Farewell to the Flesh, Candyman, and in 99 there was Candyman Day of the Dead.
See, I didn't even know these movies existed.
They must have sucked. Hold on, let me look and see.
Well, I'm sure they do. The second movie for a horror genre is always terrible, and the third is even worse. You can watch the ratings just go steadily down as the sequel numbers increases. So it's sort of a remake, sort of a sequel. And over the weekend, the Universal Pictures film debuted, tallied 22 million in ticket sales domestically, and another 5.2 million in international markets. That's still way down from, some of the other movies that were releasing pre-2019.
Do they mention any of the competitors, the competition movies out there? Because I don't
who else was in the theaters, you mean?
Well, what other movies were being played? Because this is just something that I don't even hear about anymore. It's
Well, they do mention some of the more recent releases, like Black Widow, which was released by Disney, I think.
Yeah, but then did that go straight to Disney's channel though, right?
The article explains. So movie theaters have struggled to sustain momentum since reopening last year. The problem has been exacerbated by many high-profile franchise films that have been made available in theaters and on streaming services at the same time. But that hasn't been the case for Hollywood's 2021 horror films. The slate has been exclusively available in theaters, which has coaxed audiences out to experience frights and jump scares in the dark. Analysts had expected Candyman to perform well, but maybe not this well. The movie theater experience is tailor-made for horror movie viewing, and thus the relationship between theatrical exhibition and this most consistent and indeed profitable of genres will continue for as long as audiences are excited about being scared in a darkened room with a bunch of strangers. With smaller budgets compared with other genres, horror films don't have to make as much at the box office in order to turn a profit. Now, it goes into numbers here that I'm not really interested in, but let's compare it to other things. Paramount's A Quiet Place Part 2, which was delayed, quote, due to the pandemic, has tallied nearly $300 million globally since its release in late May, with an estimated budget of around $22 million. Evidently, that's another horror movie. The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It, around $40 million and $200 million worldwide. But Black Widow, which was released by Disney, had a production budget of $200 million and a marketing budget estimated to be around $100 million. So they spent $300 million making and advertising this movie. With a global box office haul of $370 million since its early July release, which the studio has to split with the movie theaters, the Marvel movie likely won't break even. Disney has reported some of its streaming grosses for the title, which includes a $60 million opening weekend in digital sales. Similarly, Warner Brothers' The Suicide Squad, which was in theaters earlier this month apparently, had a budget of $185 million and has currently collected around $150 million in box office receipts. So horror movies, still doing well, still proving profitable, but Warner Brothers and Disney, their movies not doing so much.
They're sucking these days, and it looks like the next couple of superhero movies that come out are going to do the same.
Are they still making superhero movies?
Of course they are.
There's the next generation. They got all kinds of cool characters. Oh, they got some kind of animated thing where it's What If Marvel or something, where they switcheroo all the characters. Like I think the first one was a female Captain America, the girlfriend.
That's right, and Natalie Portman's becoming the new Thor, right?
Yep.
That'll be awesome. I'll go and see those.
Who knows how that's going to turn out. Now, I will say that the director of that particular Thor is one of my favorite directors, so that might turn out all right. He's a little bit of a comedian. I like that that mixture of superheroes and comedy. I think it's a good mix.
I can answer your question from earlier, Conan, who was Candyman competing with in the theaters. Looks like Candyman was the only movie to open at movie theaters this past weekend, so there wasn't anything else new that came out.
Right.
So he's obviously competing with other theater movies that have been in play, which Free Guy was number 2.
I've never heard of that.
Ryan Reynolds movie.
Well, I don't watch television, so how would I see these things being advertised anyway?
They advertise on the internet.
Also directed by Taika Waititi.
Yeah. Did he direct that?
Yeah. I know he had a part. I know he's an actor in it.
He plays a role in it. Yeah, I know that much. I happened to come across a promo for this when I was just looking at RottenTomatoes.com, just looking at like what movies are coming up. Because I'm like you, Arya. I have no idea what movies are coming out. I mean, I generally don't go to them anyway. There has to be something that's really motivating to me to make me want to actually go out to the theater. But it is nice to know what's coming up, and RottenTomatoes.com is does a good job of that. I watched the promo for it. It looked pretty fun. It looked like a pretty entertaining movie. It's
Ryan Reynolds. He's being himself.
Yeah, Ryan Reynolds, very popular actor. But ultimately, the movie appears to be about a video game world in which Reynolds is sort of like some side character. He's like a bank teller or something like that, and he doesn't realize he's a character.
He's an NPC.
He's an NPC essentially, and some woman comes in who's a player, and she tries to open his mind or something like that.
Speaking of Red Pill, the only movies that I have my eyes on at all are Dune, the remake.
When's that one coming out?
Soon.
Okay.
The trailer is already out, maybe August, I think, and then also, of course,
August is
Matrix 4, which probably won't.
That's December.
December, yeah.
And then Paw Patrol, the movie, was number 3, followed by Jungle Cruise. So Free Guy is in its 3rd week, Paw Patrol in its 2nd, and Jungle Cruise in its 5th. There are not a lot of new movies coming out at the box office.
It's all streaming. It's all Netflix. It's all Amazon.
Well, a lot of these are getting released simultaneously onto those, but that's just not a whole lot of new movies at all.
No, it is a dying situation for real.
Free Guy does sound interesting, though.
The promo looked fun. It looked like a fun movie.
I wouldn't want to go see it in theaters, but, when it's on one of these streaming, maybe it is already on one of these streaming services. That's certainly the way I prefer to watch things, because then you don't have to deal with the lines, you don't have to deal with the crowd of people or people talking during the movie or any of that sort of thing.
You can take a break when you need to.
Mm-hmm.
You can have whatever kind of beverage and or food available to you, and you don't have to buy crazy expensive. I can't even understand the popcorn. And of course, I wouldn't eat the popcorn anyways. But
no, I'm not surprised you wouldn't.
I make some kick-ass.
You seem like the guy who would take your own popcorn, smuggle it in your coat pockets or something.
Yes. But I make some kick-ass movie theater popcorn.
Oh, yeah?
Good.
Well, there's more coming up. We're going to talk about these protests in Australia and what the Australian government is doing to keep an eye on its citizens, including taking over their social media platforms. What movies coming up are you excited about? 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
When Monster Hunter International discovers one of Isaac Newton's wardstones being auctioned off, they decide to steal it and use it to destroy the Chaos God once and for all. But a mysterious thief upends their plan, and it soon becomes a race against time as something much older and infinitely more evil awakens in the jungles of South America. Monster Hunter Bloodlines by New York Times bestselling author Larry Correia and Baen Books. Visit monsterhunternation.com for more.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at Bitcoin.com. That's Bitcoin.com.
Don't worry about things you can't control. Isn't that what they always say? But it's about impossible to avoid worrying about what's going on these days. The government has used the war on guns, the war on drugs, and the war on terrorism to tear our Bill of Rights to shreds. But you can fight back. The 10th Amendment Center has proven it, racking up major victories. For example, when the U.S. government claimed authority in the NDAA to have the military kidnap and detain Americans without trial, the nullifiers got a law passed in California, declaring the state's refusal to ever participate in any such thing. Their latest project is offnow.org, nullifying the National Security Agency. They've already gotten model legislation introduced in California, Arizona, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Kansas, meant to limit the power of the NSA to spy on Americans in those states. We'd be fools to wait around for the U.S. Congress or courts to roll back Big Brother. Our best chance is nullification and interposition on the state level. Go to offnow.org, print out that model legislation, and get to work nullifying the NSA. The hero Edward Snowden has risked everything to give us this chance. Let's take it. Offnow.org.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in Liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us, 603-283-6160. If you'd like to do that, that's 603-283-6160. Now, we're going to talk about the protests going on in Australia and the United States, but I want to start with the surveillance bill, the horrifying, disgusting surveillance bill that will allow Australian governments to take over your social media accounts, to hack your devices, and other things like that, delete your accounts, all without warrants. And this horrifying bill was pushed through their parliament in under 24 hours. Because when the government wants to take control, when they want to spy on you, they can get their crap together and push legislation out of the door pretty quickly.
Yeah, it's true. And the story here comes from tutanota.com, which is if you've never heard of them, they do like privacy emails. So,
I've never heard of this. Similar to like ProtonMail, I guess?
I think so,
okay.
Yeah. Pete Eyre actually has had accounts with them in the past, so I know that it's got a good... If Pete Eyre's using your product, it's probably a pretty good product. So I know these guys are, and they're fairly well respected. So they're writing about this for whatever reason. The Australian government, from tutanota.com, has been moving toward a surveillance state for some years already. Now they're putting the nail in the coffin with an unprecedented surveillance bill that allows the police to hack your device, collect or delete your data, and take over your social media accounts without sufficient safeguards to prevent abuse of these new powers.
These powers are abusive by their very nature.
No doubt. This month, the Australian government has passed a sweeping surveillance bill worse than any similar legislation in any of the other Five Eye countries. The surveillance...
Five Eye countries?
It's like Australia, Canada, U.S.
What does that mean?
There's a certain group called the Five Eyes, and I don't remember where that comes from. Maybe Conan can find out for us.
Yeah, I've never heard of it.
The Surveillance Legislation Amendment, I think France is in there too. Maybe UK. Identify and Disrupt Bill 2020. So this is what it's called. The Surveillance Legislation Amendment, Identify and Disrupt, which Identify and Disrupt are in parentheses. Bill 2020 gives the Australian Federal Police and the Australian Criminal Intelligence Commission 3 new powers for dealing with online crime. Now, even though it's called Bill 2020, this story was published today. So this isn't like, a year old.
Weird.
Point 1, Data Disruption Warrant gives the police the ability to disrupt data by modifying, copying, adding, or deleting it. 2, Network Activity Warrant allows the police to collect intelligence from devices or networks that are used or likely to be used by those subject to the warrant. And 3, Account Takeover Warrant allows the police to take control of an online account, for instance, social media, for the purposes of gathering information for an investigation. The 2 Australian law enforcement bodies, the AFP and ACIC, will soon have the power to modify, add, copy, or delete your data should you simply become a suspect in the investigation of a serious crime.
Yeah, so they're reaching full-on China levels of surveillance and smashing privacy here.
By the way, the Five Eyes is an intelligence alliance.
Okay.
The countries involved are Australia, Canada, New Zealand, United Kingdom, and United States, and it's been around since World War II.
Wow.
Especially during the Cold War. So basically, all these countries get together and they share information with each other.
Yeah. What makes the legislation worse is there's no judicial oversight. A data disruption or network activity warrant could be issued by a member of the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. A judge's warrant is not needed. Australian companies are obliged to comply when presented with such a warrant from the Administrative Appeals Tribunal. Australian company systems administrators must comply and actively help the police to modify, add, copy, or delete the data of a person under investigation. Refusing to comply could have one end up in jail for 10 years.
Jesus.
According to the new bill.
So if you're a network administrator of some company and they hand this to you, you have to help them.
That's right.
Hack your client.
Yep. And do
not
whatever
just
they
say,
want.
okay, well, I'm not going to stand in your way, but I'm not assisting you with this.
Required hacking activities could include altering, copying, and deleting data, intercepting and modifying communications, surveilling networks, and changing account credentials. Politicians justify the need for the bill by stating it's intended to fight child exploitation,
of course,
and terrorism. However, the bill itself enables law enforcement to investigate any serious Commonwealth offense or serious state offense that has a federal aspect. In fact, the wording enables police to investigate any offense, which is punishable by imprisonment of at least 3 years, including terrorism, sharing child abuse material, violence, acts of piracy, bankruptcy and company violations, and tax evasion.
Bankruptcy.
I love how they say this is about child exploitation and terrorism, 2 of the big phrases that are just meant to make the people support this legislation.
Absolutely, because who could be in favor of those things?
Well, no one, but this bill is unlikely to do anything about either of those issues. And is terrorism even an issue in Australia?
I don't know. I don't live there.
Yeah, I don't either. I've never heard of Australian terrorism being an issue. Maybe in New Zealand, but that's...
there was that one attack in New Zealand a couple of years ago.
But that was one attack on Muslims.
Mm-hmm. Australia's just going downhill ever since Paul Hogan left. And here they are.
I'm happy to hear you believe Australia exists.
In this particular simulation, yeah.
Okay.
Today's simulation. And they're building the vaccine concentration camps. The COVID concentration camps. I mean,
they are. I've not heard about this.
They're rushing it.
Yeah. You haven't heard about Well Camp?
It's called.
I have not.
The Center for National Resilience.
What now? What is that?
It's called the Center or the Centra for National Resilience, and they're fast tracking it.
That's what the camp is called, or the. Okay.
What is this supposed to be for?
It's a quarantine camp. So what they're doing in Australia is they've been using hotels for quarantine. So if you come into Australia, if for whatever reason they allow you to come in,
if for some reason you want to go there.
Yeah, you are sent to quarantine for, I don't know, let's say 2 weeks or whatever the arbitrary number of days is, and they've been sending people to hotels. Well, they're saying that the hotels are a danger because all of the quarantined people are using the same the same hallways, right? So hallways in the hotels are being used by all the quarantined people, so therefore it's not really a quarantine, or it's not good enough, right? Because the COVID could spread in the hallways. So their proposal is to build a 1,000 bed facility, which will be outdoor pods, basically. It'll be for single people, for couples, and for families. They'll have like little cabins, apparently, that they're building, and it's going to be near the airport in a town called, literally, it's called this Well Camp. The town itself apparently is called Well Camp, so it just happens to be they're going to build a concentration or a quarantine camp.
And not to mention,
in Well Camp.
You had that one character.
Is there going to be a barbed wire fence around this thing?
Not clear.
That one character who basically was told to quarantine and took off. And they spent like a week trying to find him or something, and he was quarantined.
Did you see they did find him?
Yeah, they got him.
I never looked into that.
But yeah, I guess this would be the next step if you, instead of, because you can have guards actually monitoring all of the, the lepers who they send to this place.
So are you stuck inside your little cabin thing for the duration of the quarantine, or are you allowed to go outside?
If it's done like some of these other quarantines in other places, you will have a 1 hour out. So it'll be a 23-hour lockdown. That's the way it's being done, for instance, in Saipan.
An hour of yard time. Absolutely horrifying what's happening in Australia. But luckily, people are pushing back against it, especially truckers, who could grind the entire country to a halt. And we're going to talk about that. We're going to hear from one of those truckers. 603-283-6160 if you want to join in. 603-283-6160. And there's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live was the first major media in the world to talk about Bitcoin. Were you listening when the crypto revolution began? Did you buy back then? Well, now it's 10 years later and a new generation of crypto could change the world again. If you listened to Free Talk Live last year, you heard the hosts of Free Talk Live talking about Intercoin, a new cryptocurrency to help unite local communities and businesses and make their communities stronger, all without having to rely on government. Intercoin team members have already built apps that have successfully reached millions of users in dozens of countries around the world. And starting in August, Intercoin is launching worldwide. Anywhere you live, this is your chance to buy it using your favorite Ethereum wallet by going to exchanges like Uniswap. Using Intercoin, you can even launch your own cryptocurrency for your own members and your own customers under your own brand. Want to learn more? Just go to intercoin.org and follow the steps to get some Intercoin for yourself. Be part of the next generation of crypto. And remember, you heard about intercoin.org here on Free Talk Live.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history.
President Biden with a full-throated defense at the White House today of his decision to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan, his insistence that he planned for every eventuality, that the U.S. has no overwhelming national security interest in Afghanistan, and that he is certain he's doing the right thing for the United States.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been a very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None.
Republicans are accusing President Biden of betrayal and cowardice. On Capitol Hill today, their leader in the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy.
What is the plan to get Americans out? Never in my lifetime would I ever believe America would have an administration knowingly make a decision to leave Americans behind. Whereas just 2 weeks ago, the president promised this nation that he would not leave until every single American was out.
European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. There's division among member states on how to deal with the flow of migrants the crisis is expected to produce. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff has more.
The European Union is keen not to see a repeat of 2015, which saw the influx of more than 1 million people into the bloc's borders. The EU says its focus will be on supporting third countries such as Turkey and Pakistan to host those fleeing Afghanistan, with a warning from the UN that as many as 500,000 people could flee the country by December. But the Turkish and Pakistani governments have warned they can't take on any new burden of refugees.
Japan and the US have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change. On a visit to Tokyo, US climate change envoy John Kerry spoke with Japanese government officials ahead of the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow later this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us. Talk about whatever's important to you. 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Arya, Ian, and Conan. And we're going to talk about truckers in Australia, because if ever there was one profession that could protest and actually accomplish something almost overnight, it's going to be the truckers.
Truckers and farmers, especially with farm
With farmers, it would take
equipment.
longer for their protests to become clear, or for the effects to happen. With truckers, 3 days, and all of the stores are empty.
Yeah,
if they're not
sure.
empty the first day because people are like, oh God, we're not going to get another delivery, so they rush out and buy all the toilet paper.
Well, here's what some of the farmers in some of the European countries have been doing. They take their equipment out to the road and they block traffic.
Nice.
And they drive up and down the main street there, and so, I don't know if you've seen some farm equipment, you know, some of these threshers and some of these, you know, mills and whatnot. You're talking about very large vehicles that can cause a lot of upset.
So that's also what the Australian truckers are doing. They're planning on blocking ports and major highways and things like that. They're not just protesting by not delivering things. They're also protesting to get in the way.
Mm-hmm.
And that's awesome. And I'm hoping it's effective, because Australia is out of control, and no other body or class or designation of person in Australia has that much power to do something about it. But of course, it'll depend on how many truckers are on board with this.
It would. And it also, well, the other thing is they're in a unique position because they can't be told they're non-essential, right? These guys are allowed to go out. They're allowed to be on the roads. So just the fact of leaving their home isn't necessarily going to get them put in handcuffs.
Allowed. I like that word.
That's the way it is. I mean, everybody else in some of these places is completely locked down. But they can't lock down the truck drivers because they still need to allow people to go to the grocery store. And in order for them to go to the grocery store, the groceries got to get there.
Yep.
So they are allowed to be on the roads. There's nothing that can be done about that. However, apparently, according to CDLlife.com, which is a trucker news website, CDL being the commercial driver's license, there's an article here about, will the U.S. trucker anti-vax shutdown look like the Australian version? They say that apparently today was set to be the day that American truckers were to park their trucks to protest possible vaccine mandates on the horizon, but it remains to be seen whether their actions will be as headline-grabbing as the Australian driver shutdown.
Obviously not, because I hadn't heard any of this. I heard about the Australian truckers, but not about the American version.
Well, the American media wouldn't want to talk about the American trucker protest.
No.
Because they're all about the vaccine mandates.
Correct. And now, what are the Australians protesting? The mandates?
The lockdowns,
everything.
The mandates. I mean, all the things that are going on to destroy freedom in Australia. And when I did hear about the American version of this, it sounded to me like a muted variant. Like the Australian truckers are saying, we're going to target the ports, we're going to target, the major thoroughfares or whatever, we're going to block this stuff. The Americans, I don't even remember what they said, but it just sounded weak by comparison.
It happened today, obviously, according to the two articles I have pulled up.
It supposedly happened today.
It's supposedly. There's only a couple of really, upset truckers who are popular, but amongst their other truck buddies, basically their goal was to just pull over. Pull over and just, or even just drive at 5 miles an hour down the interstate.
Well, what I had heard was that they were just going to go on strike today, which of course is ultimately not that meaningful. It's not going to really do much. But then again, did they really do much in Australia? Let's get a little bit more to the story. So on August 29th, so a couple days ago now, a group of Australian truckers managed to shut down M1 on the Gold Coast for about an hour to protest employer-mandated vaccines. The truckers draped a banner reading, "Truckies keep Australia moving, not politicians," across the front of their trucks and caused major traffic disruptions on the highway. The protest activity was joined by a group of non-trucking industry protesters angry over COVID-19 shutdowns, bringing the estimated number of demonstrators up to about 100, according to local news outlets. Police eventually broke up the blockade and forced the trucks off of the highway. Protest activities continued into Tuesday in Australia. The West Australian reports 150 people were arrested and 600 cited at various anti-vaccine, anti-lockdown protest activities Tuesday in Australia, many of them not associated with the trucking industry. And when you actually go and you look for news about the trucking protest in Australia, you end up finding stories about these people that were arrested, and the protesters supposedly took over the truckers' protest. And so
they just joined with the truckers' protest, though,
yeah,
right?
But all the news about it completely sidelines any coverage of what the truckers had done. I had to go to CDL Life to find out what they actually shut down, and they do mention this one highway. But again, we're relying on the mainstream media here to tell us what really happened, and that's not going to be acceptable.
So this audio here, is this an Australian or an American trucker?
I've got audio from I don't know if it was a TikTok or something like that, but self-shot video of a trucker. This is an Australian trucker, and it gives you an idea for how some of these guys are feeling. And I did have to censor some of this because he's upset.
Understandably. It takes it a second to start. Let me move the cursor here a bit.
Australia, with a so-called corporate government, we run this country, we the people, and I'm a truck driver. We as truckies, we will block all your highways, we'll block all your ports, and we'll even stop what we need to stop. There is nothing you will be able to do. You back off, these are our roads, this is our country, and we will run it how we want to run it.
That's a powerful message, and he's not wrong. If they want to, they could grind the entire country to a halt. Wouldn't do much for the Australian people because they wouldn't be getting food and necessities, but if ever a group could stand up to the government, it would be truckers.
This is our country. You and your vaccines is bull. You can f*** off. You are not going to mandate nothing. And for the kids, what you're doing, right, is disgusting. What you've done in Round 'em Up in New South Wales is disgusting. We are going to run this country. We are taking it back. Us truck drivers are going to be the front line, and whoever's behind us, we are going to take our country back. You politicians make me sick. You guys are filthy. You guys do not represent us people, and you don't represent this country. F*** you. We're going to take our country back.
Powerful message.
Awesome.
And he's not wrong about the kids either. I saw an article today at the Drudge Report about how schools are having to hire more therapists to help kids deal with, quote, the trauma of the pandemic. But really, once you look at the article, they're not talking about the trauma of the pandemic. They're talking about the trauma of the fear surrounding the pandemic and the lockdowns.
It's not like people are dying left and right around them, causing any sort of trauma from that. The trauma is of the mandates. The trauma is of putting masks on, forced to be wearing masks while interacting with friends and people at the grocery store or whatever. That's traumatizing.
You see the school that they are teaching the kids to walk like zombies?
That was a picture from a year ago, but yeah, it was something that actually happened.
In order to retain social distancing, they got their hands out, and it's just...
They were told to do the, quote, zombie walk. So literally...
I have not seen that. That's horrifying.
Yeah, literally turning kids into zombies.
But the vast majority of kids wouldn't even know about COVID-19 if it wasn't just being plastered on the media everywhere.
The majority of U.S. citizens wouldn't know about it unless it was plastered everywhere.
Also true.
And by the way, it's not just the fear and the depression and the suicide numbers that have gone up, but now you've got a new epidemic, obesity.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I have a statistic from Disclose.tv. Obesity of U.S. children increased among 5 through 11-year-olds from 36.2%, which was already high,
really bad,
to 45.7% during the so-called pandemic, according to a new study.
I mean, what else did you expect? You got kids locked up in the house that just, vegging and streaming whatever, and eating.
Well, I've got good news on that. A number of doctors are now prescribing time outside to treat ailments like obesity and anxiety.
How do you like that?
Yeah.
That's what I've been saying for the last 16 months.
More about Australia and what's happening there coming up. 603-283-6160. And later, just go outside, get some exercise. It's Free Talk Live.
Why did you move to the Shire?
I moved here to the Shire because there's other people around who take liberty just as seriously as I do.
I moved to the Shire because I saw videos of people challenging authority and thought that I could get support myself. It called to me, like, do this, right now.
I wanted to be around people like me who got it, and once I got here, I knew there was nowhere else that I wanted to be.
I've always wanted to change the world, so I moved to the Shire to join people who were actually working towards doing the same thing.
The people here are awesome, loving, and positive. It was for the adventure and for the feeling of something important is happening here, and I just wanted to come to sort of be part of that.
Visit ShireSociety.com to read and sign the Shire Society Declaration and learn the reasons why, if you love liberty, you should immigrate to the Shire. Plus, connect with others via the forum at ShireSociety.com. That's ShireSociety.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, yeah, we can have a free market, a truly free market.
Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. It's physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you can talk about whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160 if you want to join the discussion we're having tonight. It's 603-283-6160. But I want to tell you about Bitcoin.com. It is the best place to go to learn about cryptocurrency. So if you don't know anything about it, go there, Bitcoin.com, click Getting Started at the top of the page. Take a few minutes out of your day to watch just a couple of videos about this important and world-changing information. But if you're already a knowledgeable crypto user, check out news.bitcoin.com for all of the news and headlines that's relevant to you, all on a sleek and easy-to-use modern website. That's bitcoin.com. We're talking about Australia, which has been a focal point of a lot of our shows lately because what's happening there is insane. New Zealand, very similar to Australia, locked down their entire country over one positive case. New South Wales, they've been in a lockdown for about 5 weeks now, I think, and it was ultimately because one guy got it at a pet foods manufacturer, and now it's just everywhere. So their lockdown clearly is not preventing the spread of COVID-19, but they're insisting on doing it anyway.
But it sure is, empowering the government to completely dictate and control people's lives. And one of the articles did point out that, like New Zealand, Australia apparently is one of those countries that doesn't really have like a constitution or Bill of Rights or anything like that. So essentially, the government there legally can kind of just do whatever it is they want to do. And
really,
yeah, there's really not much you can appeal on.
And they don't have guns. And that's a big one right there. It's the same thing in Britain.
I'm still surprised to find that Australians don't have guns. I mean, sure, maybe not in the rural
I think they allow them in the rural areas for shooting varmints or something like that.
Yeah, for punting. But the actual have them, nah, they banned those a long time ago.
Well, you got to expect this thing from a country that used to be a penal colony.
Mm-hmm.
They have criminals there, and criminals obviously in charge.
Oh, yeah. Well, just like anywhere. It's just they're leading the pack of total lockdown insanity on the planet, at least that we've heard of.
And it's also their flu season as well.
Yes.
To keep that in mind. So this is coming. We're going to have, Tennessee might be working on their own concentration camp. Quarantine resilience camp or whatever they want to call it.
I know that Canada was at least floating the idea of such a thing, but that was like a year ago that we talked about that, and I haven't looked into it since. So I don't know.
And by the way, that's if we don't even already have these camps set aside that we just don't know about that aren't showing up on Google Maps. FEMA camps I'm talking about, where in a pinch, if you got you got some rabble risers on the radio talking about how this is bull crap. Get those guys out the air and take them to the camp.
Well, Alex Jones has been talking about FEMA camps for a number of years.
And he's almost always right.
Well, I don't know if I'd say almost always right.
In a sense. Yeah, I don't trust that guy.
Yeah.
At all.
Alex Jones?
He's
humorous.
He's very humorous, but he hurts the cause. He really hurts the cause.
You just reminded me of something I saw last night. So you remember Jesse Ventura had a TV show called Conspiracy Theory?
Yep.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
A decade ago.
I thought it was pretty retarded, actually.
So I mean, it's entertaining.
It's kind of like it's real reality TV-ishness.
Yeah, it is.
He had a news program too. That he did for a while.
So somebody posted a clip on social media from 2009. There was an episode of this show where they interviewed a doctor who purportedly was like an expatriate. She'd left the United States due to the police state here, and she was talking about how the UN at some point is going to release a vaccine that's going to get people sick, and it's going to be the flu. And there was some things that she said that seemed pretty interesting, like how predictive it was what she said. Now, she wasn't right about everything as far as how everything went, but I just watched this clip and it made me think, what's old Jesse Ventura thinking about the vaccine these days? And sure enough,
I'm willing to bet he's vaccinated.
I suspect he is because he's pimping it. Yeah, Jesse Ventura is pimping the vaccine, and of course
so is Trump.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, these guys are all part of the system, but it's resulting in a bunch of people sharing Jesse Ventura's posts and saying, like, people on the left or the pro-vaccine people or whatever, they're sharing Jesse Ventura's post saying, see, if Jesse Ventura thinks it's a good idea, then clearly it's not a conspiracy.
Yeah, well, and Arnold's pushing it too. He's like, screw your freedoms.
Yeah.
So you got Ventura, you got Trump, you got Schwarzenegger.
Yep.
And they're saying that what do they call them? Spreadnecks.
Yep.
The Southerners who refused to get the Trumpies. Trump got booed,
but they're not
by the way.
Trumpies. I mean, the vast majority, maybe not the vast majority, but the majority of people in the South who aren't vaccinated are Black Americans.
Black Americans, correct?
Not white ones. So they're not rednecks.
But I mean,
there are black rednecks. You just can't see
the anti-vaxxers are getting thrown into this group of white conservatives, and they're all Trumpy. They're all MAGA, and it's all bullcrap. You got a lot of the black community that aren't taking this thing because they remember history.
You got to remember the left has a view of the world that is extremely myopic and childlike. There's us and there's them. So if you're not on their side, you're them. So they'll gladly lump the Chinese people, black people, white people, conservatives, libertarians, anarchists, all of them into a single category that is just basically not 100% in agreement with me. Therefore evil. Therefore the devil. Therefore MAGA, therefore Trump supporter. That's what they do. I don't know why they do it, but meanwhile,
it's tribal. It feels good to be a part of a team, to be a member of a team.
It's insane though.
But when you have a bunch of soy boys, a bunch of woke soy boys who can't take care of themselves, who don't have any skills, any strengths.
Well,
of course, you want to be a part of a clique because on your own. You're nothing. You're just a weak little man.
Well, that's why they hate individualism for sure.
Correct.
That's why nationalism is such a thing, because it allows people who have accomplished nothing in their lives to feel great and be emboldened because I'm a member of the United States and it's the most glorious nation on earth and all of this other nonsense, because that's the only achievement they can cling to is the fact that they were born in a particular location.
Yep. Yeah. Well, Trump at one of his last rallies, he got booed. He was talking about I'm so good, I got the vaccine out there, you guys should all take it, and they booed him.
Nice.
So so just shut it down, liberals. This idea that that only MAGA, only Trumpers are not taking this vaccine, that's bullcrap. His people aren't happy with him about this, about the push to get that out there, and then taking credit for it. And of course now Biden's taking credit for the exact same thing.
Sure.
It's the same jab. It's not any different than.
I miss hearing about the Twitter feed that just takes people's posts from like a year ago about the evil Trump vaccine, and a year later, like, hey, I just got my vaccine.
Yeah, Kamala Harris, Biden, all of these guys, Trudeau.
But this is just your average, ordinary person. I think there's one guy called New York Dad or something like that who's fairly
Brooklyn Dad.
Yeah, fairly popular on Twitter, who did exactly that. And he was just like, I'm not getting this Trump vaccine. There's nothing on earth that would make me trust Trump's vaccine.
1 year later, I'm so proud. I went in there and I was shaking. I was so proud to get the jab. I felt so good.
They're like, yes, I'll gladly get a third jab or a fourth jab or how many it takes to keep me safe.
I'm already in line for the booster.
Even though these are still the Trump vaccines.
Correct.
The account you're referring to is Defiant Els on Twitter, @DefiantEls. And they posted one today from a liberal named Jeff Tiedrick, @It'sJeffTiedrick on Twitter. From September 23rd of 2020, he writes, yeah, sure, bro, America has lost confidence in our scientists. Thanks to your constant carnival barking. He's talking to Trump. Constant carnival barking about imaginary miracle cures. Great job, Goofus. Even if you do come out with a real vaccine, no one's going to trust it. Pat yourself on the back, Peacock. Real ace work.
I love that they tagged this guy as they posted these things.
And what's the new update?
The latest post was apparently from today. Jeff Tiedrick writes, holy effing S. If you insist on, quote, doing your own research, unquote, then build your own effing ventilator. Stop clogging up our hospitals.
Wow. It's like they don't even. It's like these people aren't even real. It's like I always bring up the meme, the NPC meme.
They're goldfish, man.
But I'm serious. These people are so clueless. It's like they're not even. It's like they were written. It's like they were coded for a certain response 1 year ago, and someone just flipped a switch, and they don't even remember that they said all this stuff.
Nope. They're goldfish, man. They were angry at Trump, so they were against the vaccine that Trump was releasing, or that what's being developed that Trump had nothing to do with.
The Trump vaccine is what a lot of them call it.
Yeah, even though Trump had absolutely nothing to do with it, other than probably telling the FDA, hey, yeah, let's go ahead and get this going, they still called it the Trump vaccine.
And they all lined right up for it as soon as Trump got out of office.
It's amazing that people do it, but hey, it's common. I don't like calling them NPCs, but I guess I don't really like calling them goldfish either, but there's... What the hell, people? How can you say...
How you could change your opinion like that in...
Overnight.
9 months.
Yeah, just completely 180 in 9 months. How do people do this? Have you changed your mind? Did you hate the Trump vaccine and have you since been vaccinated? Give us a call. Let us know. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up here. 603-283-6160. We're going to talk more about the Australian protest and the U.S. protest. It's Free Talk Live.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan. The longest war in American history.
President Biden with a full-throated defense at the White House today of his decision to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan, his insistence that he planned for every eventuality, that the U.S. has no overwhelming national security interest in Afghanistan, and that he is certain he's doing the right thing for the United States.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been a very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None.
Republicans are accusing President Biden of betrayal and cowardice. On Capitol Hill today, their leader in the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy.
What is the plan to get Americans out? Never in my lifetime would I ever believe America would have an administration knowingly make a decision to leave Americans behind. Whereas just 2 weeks ago, the president promised this nation that he would not leave until every single American was out.
European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. There's division among member states on how to deal with the flow of migrants the crisis is expected to produce. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff has more.
The European Union is keen not to see a repeat of 2015, which saw the influx of more than 1 million people into the bloc's borders. The EU says its focus will be on supporting third countries such as Turkey and Pakistan to host those fleeing Afghanistan, with a warning from the UN that as many as 500,000 people could flee the country by December. But the Turkish and Pakistani governments have warned they can't take on any new burden of refugees.
Japan and the US have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change. On a visit to Tokyo, US climate change envoy John Kerry spoke with Japanese government officials ahead of the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow later this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Looking today at the crackdown in China on video games. The government in Beijing has announced that Chinese gamers under the age of 18 will only be allowed to play 1 hour a day on Fridays, weekends and public holidays, and only between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening. The move comes a few weeks after one of the country's leading newspapers, a mouthpiece of the ruling Communist Party, described video games as spiritual opium. So what will the impact of the restrictions be on the gaming industry? Will Guyot is FSN's tech reporter.
The Chinese games market generates an estimated $46 billion of revenue every year. But this crackdown has been heard all around the world. We've had companies like Ubisoft, the video games company, they lost around 5% of their share price when this news was announced. We've also heard of Chinese gaming stocks sliding. The big concern here is that because so many Chinese people play games, you've got 62.5% of under 18 Chinese minors playing games online. There's going to be it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the weeks and months ahead.
Facial recognition is expected to be used to impose the ban. The restrictions are a big gamble by the Chinese government and could fuel opposition from many young gamers. The main news again, President Biden has offered a full-throated defense of his decision to withdraw US forces from Afghanistan. European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover in Kabul. And Japan and the United States have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change in talks designed to prepare for the COP26 conference in Glasgow later this year. There's more from us on Twitter @FeatureStory. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
This is the Onion Week in Review. Gushing women voters announced Monday that they just can't help but feel an uncontrollable attraction to the sexist Republican Party. Saying they should know better but just can't resist the GOP's reckless neglect of women's health issues, smitten females across the country are reportedly driven wild by the GOP's blatant chauvinism.
I can't say no to bold, misogynistic politicians who think their authority extends to my uterus. Whenever you vote for a Republican, you feel like you're doing something a little bit naughty.
Top officials within the U.S. military acknowledged Wednesday that they were desperate to be given just one solid war they could really knock out of the park. Citing the recent string of messy, ambiguous military engagements in the Middle East, members of the Pentagon brass called for a conflict against a sovereign nation with a standing army and a clear-cut bad guy who employs conventional tactics and weaponry.
No roadside bombs, no plainclothes militants hiding out among innocent civilians. Just a fair fight where two sides shoot at each other and someone wins. We're absolutely great at that.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. As always, you're invited to join us, 603-283-6160. You can talk about what we've been discussing, which is the protests, or just the insane forgetfulness among people. Because it's not, we do have this one Twitter account that's making fun of liberals, but we have the exact same thing that Republicans have doing for the last several decades. They all contradict themselves because probably the only political demographic whose tweets you can't just find one and then a year later find a direct contradiction to are probably going to be libertarians, which tend to be pretty consistent as time goes on because they are coming from a politically consistent point of view rather than an emotionally charged one.
Correct.
Like the liberals who were angry at Trump, so therefore they hated the vaccine, but now that it's not Trump in office, they love the vaccine.
Yeah, it's so bizarre. I mean, it's hard to even imagine being like that. I mean, and you mentioned the principle that we have, and it's the non-aggression principle. As liberty-minded people, we believe that it's wrong to use aggressive violence against our neighbors to get our way. We want to persuade rather than harm.
And it's so weird. The New York Magazine article that just ran about the Crypto 6 mentioned, amplifying the bad decisions like the lawsuit against Keene for the mask mandate. But look, we oppose the mandate part of this. If you want to wear a mask, fine. No one's going to stop you. But it shouldn't be mandated because we are politically consistent on that note, philosophically consistent. I mean, nothing should be mandated.
Didn't matter if it was Trump in office or Biden in office. We've been against this the whole time.
Yep. So have other people, and now people are beginning to protest, including truckers. There's also a trucker protest going on in the United States that started today. Who knows how effective that's been? I haven't heard anything about it. But again, my ability to
I don't think you're going to.
You're not. But I mean, if we do have truckers who listen to this show, if you even knew anything about this, call in and tell us, what you heard. I just tried to join one of these trucker Facebook groups. I'm waiting for a reply. The first question on the poll, by the way, was, do I support banning fracking? So I don't know what that has to do with a trucking page, but
they're trying
to weed out the correct.
I like the wording though. Do you support banning fracking and not do you support fracking? Well, I don't support banning it, no, because I don't support banning anything.
Well, the three responses were yes, no, and I don't even know what that is.
There is a bit of background here from the CDLLife.com article where they look at Australia, what's been happening there, or what ostensibly has happened there, where they shut down a road, at least. We don't know much more detail about what other... Because the guy that we listened to earlier, the audio clip that you played, Arya, he was saying they're going to shut down the ports and shut down the roads, and it sounded like it was going to be a big thing. And now, of course, the mainstream media isn't going to... they're not going to report accurately on successful protests. But they
especially not ones that are against the lockdowns and the mandates.
Correct. Now, apparently they did go and shut down M1, which is a highway on the Gold Coast, for about an hour, but the police came and they broke up the blockade and forced the trucks off of the highway. That's the only story that this particular article mentions, but then they talk about the U.S. side of things. So there's so far been no serious push to require vaccines for American truck drivers. The U.S. trucking industry at large has been hesitant to take the vaccine and has been vocal about their dislike for employer vaccine mandates.
I'm not surprised. They spend the vast majority of their time by themselves.
Well, but also truckers are pretty freedom-minded people generally. They're screwed by the government. I mean, these poor guys. I mean, they are... The government mandates all kinds of stupid rules on people with commercial driver's licenses, like mandatory drug testing, and they pull them over all the time to harass them about whatever BS, road rules, or, your little LED light is out.
Not to mention the weight limit things. They're constantly
way
having
stations.
to... Yeah.
Not to mention the price of gas.
And they get paid per mile. So when they're waiting in line at one of these way stations, they're not getting paid for that.
Yeah, so, I mean, there's a tremendous amount of regulation on the American trucking industry, and so, as you might imagine, that kind of push, that kind of rule by the government is going to lead to people feeling like, screw the government, right? So, amongst truckers, there's a large anti-state
Well, I support them
viewpoint.
in that. Screw the government, indeed.
Yeah, so and you might expect that those same guys would also be questioning towards vaccines. And so if truckers, professional drivers, are refusing to take a vaccine, and again, the industry's not even asking them to, because they know what's going to happen. They know that if they tell these truck drivers to take a vaccine, the drivers will be like, well, find somebody else to drive this thing.
Well, by the way, that's exactly what happened in my profession, mail carrier.
Mm-hmm.
Our union came straight out and said, hey, look, we don't care what you say, Biden. You can't mandate this. You can't make our workers get the vaccine because you know why? Because half of us would quit just like that.
Right, and then nobody gets the mail, delivered. And in this case, you're not going to get any products delivered because already it's difficult to find people to work in this industry. It's an industry that has been struggling in recent years, the trucking industry, that is, because, well, they see what the writing on the wall is. They see automated trucks coming.
I don't see it anytime soon.
They're working on it, man.
They're testing
Walmart's
automated
working on
cargo
that.
ships right now.
I mean, but not anytime soon. And if we get bombed back into oblivion and we're living in caves in the next 5 years, it won't matter anyways. Be much more important things on our minds.
Anyway, they know what's going to happen if they put a vaccine mandate in place, and that is these truckers are they're not going to drive.
But we were talking about why we haven't heard any of this American variant of the trucker protests. And well, here's the main guy here, disrespected trucker 3. Got his video was taken down off TikTok. He's been banned from TikTok.
Yeah, they get into this disrespected trucker guy here. So after reading reports on the planned Australian strike, many U.S. truckers began plotting their own shutdown on social media, in part in support of the Australian movement, and also to warn employers and the federal government that they don't want the jab.
I hope they move their discussions to Telegram or some other platform that won't censor them.
One of the most outspoken advocates for the U.S. shutdown was TikTok user The Disrespected Trucker, who called for truck drivers to gather at various locations across the country today, August 31st, in a protest mirroring the planned Australian blockades. Quote, on August 31st, Tuesday, we're asking that everybody not go to work, which is not mirroring the protest of Australia. Australia's guys, they specifically said they were going to block things. This guy's saying don't go to work. If you're out on the road, shut your truck down. There are guys that plan on putting their trucks across the road. There's guys who plan on parking on the side of the road, parking at home, and at truck stops. I'm not telling anyone how to do it or what to do, unquote, he told his followers. However, TikTok abruptly shut down his account, forcing the trucker onto Twitter and possibly stymieing organized protests in the United States.
What was TikTok's reason for shutting him down? That they don't allow you to use their platform to organize protests?
Yeah, they don't have to give you a reason.
His response, by the way, to the TikTok removal: censorship is real, folks. I just got banned off of TikTok for absolutely nothing. I didn't threaten anybody. I didn't bully anybody. I didn't promote violence, and they banned me anyways. You know why that is? Because I have 85,000 followers in less than a week because I speak the truth. It's sad what this country is coming to, and if we don't all start standing up against this, we're in deep trouble, just so you know. Anyways, I guess I'll be here a little bit more until they ban me off of Twitch. Not Twitch, but Twitter. I'm sure it's coming very shortly. Have a great day.
It is. I mean, if you're a trucker and you want to plan a protest, I would recommend matrix.freetalklive.com or social.freetalklive.com because we won't censor you.
You got Mastodon?
Well, yeah. I mean, the CDL Life or any of these trucking websites could start their own Mastodon.
That's also
if
true.
They wanted to.
But we already have one that they could join.
We do. While many truckers have said they don't plan to participate as of Tuesday afternoon, because again, if you participate in this, then you probably get in trouble, right? Like you've got to get your load to the destination, and a lot of these guys are gonna be like, "Yeah, I support you, but I got to get to my destination." There's some evidence that U.S. truckers are participating in protest activities. A Facebook Live video shared by Sparky Anderson appears to show a slow roll driver protest near Nashville, Tennessee, that ended with a truck bearing a sign reading #Freedom Stop the Tires being pulled over by the police. So slow roll would be presumably blocking one lane of traffic. If you've got more than one truck, you can do the old Polish roadblock, as it's called, and you can block all 3 lanes or whatever and go like 5-10 miles an hour, whatever the slowest roll you can do.
Wow.
And I presume that's what that is.
It's getting horrific out there, and we talked about how Australia is starting to sound a lot like China. Well, China is doing a new thing. They're limiting children to 3 hours of online gaming per week. That's coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone? you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection, you can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
After a devastating war, the alien visitors were driven back, and their willing human collaborators were left behind to face the music. When Emma Jean Anderson's ex-lover springs her from prison, Nathan Foster and his 14-year-old nephew Ben are tasked with bringing the pair to justice. An easy enough job until they discover something is inside Emma Jean, and the fate of the planet hangs in the balance. The Family Business by Mike Coopery from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless free market non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Are you a sneezer? If you're not, can you get close to one? I don't literally mean someone sneezing. Sneezer, as defined by marketing guru Seth Godin, is an opinion leader. When a sneezer mentions something, other people catch what Godin calls the idea virus. Seth Godin says some people are more likely to tell their friends about a great new idea. So identifying and courting sneezers is a key success factor for idea merchants. His book, Unleashing the Idea Virus, is the most downloaded ebook in history, and you can download the whole book free. That's how he's making his idea contagious. Click tips, tricks, and other stuff to help you cut through the clutter at www.survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
Are you tired of your taxes funding endless occupations around the world? Antiwar.com is run by people who understand that wars abroad become wars at home, wars on our freedoms. Antiwar.com is dedicated to bringing you the latest in news, views, interviews, and reviews from the top movers and shakers in the anti-occupation movement. Antiwar.com has it all, from thorough foreign policy analysis to interviews with whistleblowers who used to run the military-industrial complex. Anti-war, pro-free market. That's antiwar.com.
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us. 603-283-6160 is the number to do that. And hey, maybe someone should tell this trucker, I don't remember his name now, about Odyssey, because he can post whatever videos he wants as long as it's not pornographic and they won't be censored. We have an Odyssey channel. You can find it at video.freetalklive.com because like these truckers, we are constantly getting hit by big tech platforms and being censored. Our YouTube channel has gotten a number of strikes for, quote, medical misinformation. It's just a matter of time before all of them drop the axe on us. So check us out at video.freetalklive.com. There we can't be censored. I mean, we, in theory, could be censored, but we won't be. That's video.freetalklive.com. And underpinning that is library, which can't be censored.
Yeah, I was going to say, we can't be censored. The library channel, at least, cannot be censored.
Right. And Odyssey is just sort of a front end that accesses the library network. It's all very confusing, but you don't have to know all of that in order to use Odyssey. Just head on over to video.freetalklive.com, create an account if you would like, and there you can follow us and see our content even after Facebook and YouTube and Twitch and all of the others shut us down. Video.freetalklive.com. Now, China. I used to play a number of online games. Maybe not a number. There was like one that I would play at a time, basically. Mm-hmm. Like Rift or World of Warcraft or something like that. And I know from experience that 3 hours of online gaming per week is not enough time to do anything. But it's worse than that. Because it's not 3 hours total. It's 1 hour Friday, Saturday, and Sunday night. You get 1 hour on 3 nights in which to engage in online gaming, and that is not enough time to do anything.
Now, is this is new, or
this is new?
Because I thought they already had some type of mandate like this out there.
They do, but this one is significantly harsher. China is banning children from playing online games for more than 3 hours a week, the harshest restriction so far on the game industry, as Chinese regulators continue cracking down on the technology sector. Minors in China, that means anyone under 18, can only play games between 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays.
Wow. So if you can't play for that 1 hour, that's the only hour you get.
Yes. And that's starting tomorrow, September the 1st, unless it's already September the 1st in China. I don't know what. Yeah. So that's already started there.
So this is just online. So you could play other games, right?
Yes. Presumably they may not have a way to monitor.
That's what I'm thinking.
Whether or not you're playing your Xbox or whatever, as long as you don't connect it to Wi-Fi.
Yeah, they're using the companies to do the enforcement on this. So the companies.
Yeah, that's the only way it would work.
Right.
That limits gaming to 3 hours a week for most weeks of the year, down from a previous restriction set in 2019 that allowed minors to play games for an hour and a half per day and 3 hours on public holidays.
Now, is this the gaming companies or the internet provider? Because they're the one who'll be able to throttle and whatnot.
I'm pretty sure Blizzard was required to implement things into World of Warcraft in order to get it approved in China. So it would be the gaming companies.
And why would Blizzard even agree to that?
Because they wanted money from Chinese players who could then play World of Warcraft.
No. But they don't want their players not playing. They want them on there as long as possible.
Blizzard doesn't care how much time people spend playing their game. They're making the same amount of money anyway. They prefer you to play less and still pay that $15 subscription fee.
They have a subscription fee, correct?
Yeah. So they would rather these bans and limitations go into place.
This is horrible.
The CNBC story on this says the rules will apply to companies providing online game services to minors, limiting their ability to serve those users outside of the designated hours. The companies will also not be allowed to provide services to users who haven't logged in with real name registration, simply preventing them from remaining ignorant to their users' background. So this also means that if you want to play as an adult on any of these game servers in China, you have to be logged in as you. You cannot log in as some anonymous gamer. You have to be identified. You have to show ID. You have to be, your name, your ID under your account, or else you will not be allowed to play. Or you can only play in the designated hours, right? So like if you're an adult and you don't want to tell them who you are, you can only play from 8 to 9 p.m. on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
The new regulation affects some of China's largest technology companies, including gaming giant Tencent, whose Honor of Kings online multiplayer game is hugely popular globally. I've never heard of it. As well as gaming company NetEase. So stocks are falling as a result of this. Market capitalization is falling. The gaming restrictions are part of an ongoing crackdown on technology companies amid concerns that technology firms, many of which provide ubiquitous messaging, payments, and gaming services, may have an outsized influence on society. Earlier this month, Tencent said it would limit gaming time for minors to an hour a day and 2 hours during the holidays. So Tencent was already planning to limit the playtime of minors anyway.
Well, they're a massive Chinese game corporation, which means they are the Chinese government.
True.
They're basically I don't know what the exactly how it all works with Chinese companies being part of the government or whatever, but Tencent is tied in.
Yeah. And they were also going to ban children under the age of 12 from making in-game purchases. The company issued the curbs hours after a state-affiliated newspaper criticized the gaming industry and called games, quote, spiritual opium. Regulators said in Monday's notice that they would strengthen supervision and increase the frequency of inspections of online game companies to ensure that they follow the new regulations closely.
Well, you know what? This is a problem, especially with the online gambling, the loot boxes.
Yes, those are definitely an issue.
I know, and you know what? Magic the Gathering was also a problem too, though. And that was a very interactive tabletop game.
They were loot boxes, though.
Exactly. I remember, working with two of these clowns, and
dude, I spent so much money when I was into Magic the Gathering. So much freaking money. The only way to avoid it was to go online or go to a gaming shop and buy the specific card that you wanted for an astronomical price.
Right. Or go on eBay. I've sold cards on eBay.
I believe it, and they probably sold pretty well and for pretty generous amounts of money.
They did, which is why I always keep my eyes for Magic the Gathering cards, and I'll look them up. But no, I remember these two clowns. They would during lunch break, they would go and they would buy 5 or 6 packs, and then they'd come back to the break room and they would have an opening, a showing.
We did this when I worked at Radio
Shack. Where they would one at a time. They would one at a time open the cards, and they would show each other. And sometimes they'd get something they wanted, and a lot of times all crap. All going right into the crap box. These loot boxes are a real thing, and now you have all these mobile apps where you can't get anywhere in the game unless you pay.
Yeah,
pay to win.
Yeah, it's disgusting, man. Dead Space 3 released for $60, and it had nothing but this microtransaction loot box nonsense in it.
Fallout 76.
Yeah, that was another. I mean, look, I understand. If you're going to make a, quote, free-to-play game, fine, put some money-making mechanism in it. But if you're going to sell a $60 game, get that crap out of here. Or charge more for the game if you want more money, ask for more money up front.
Right.
But then the season passes, the DLC, all of that nonsense came out, and then they have DLC that if you buy the season pass, which is supposed to include all DLC, but not this super special DLC, God. You still have to buy that. And I'm like,
that's where they get you.
It's frustrating.
I'm a PC gamer. I remember when content patches were assumed to be coming down the pipe, and they were free.
Right.
Now that's no longer the case. So I don't agree with China's approach to this, but there are certainly issues with the gaming sphere as a whole. What are your thoughts? It's Free Talk Live.
And now, time for something totally different. Intercoin is a project that's working to make crypto mainstream. We use the power of smart contracts to help any community in the world launch their own cryptocurrency. Ever wanted to release your own coin or build your own app to grow your business? Intercoin's team builds apps that have reached 9 million people around the world. And now it's time to help make a real social impact in your local community. Go to intercoin.org and join the movement. That's intercoin.org.
You know, when we first started Intercoin about 3 years ago, we had a big vision to help every community in the world have access to the same tools that large states and federations do, to hold local elections on the blockchain, to have their own local currency, shop local, hire local, and help fight the forces of globalization that have decimated some of these communities.
Go to intercoin.org and join the movement.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan, the longest war in American history.
President Biden with a full-throated defense at the White House today of his decision to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan, his insistence that he planned for every eventuality, that the U.S. has no overwhelming national security interest in Afghanistan, and that he is certain he's doing the right thing for the United States.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner. And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been a very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None.
Republicans are accusing President Biden of betrayal and cowardice. On Capitol Hill today, their leader in the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy.
What is the plan to get Americans out? Never in my lifetime would I ever believe America would have an administration knowingly make a decision to leave Americans behind. Whereas just 2 weeks ago, the president promised this nation that he would not leave until every single American was out.
European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. There's division among member states on how to deal with the flow of migrants the crisis is expected to produce. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff has more.
The European Union is keen not to see a repeat of 2015, which saw the influx of more than 1 million people into the bloc's borders. The EU says its focus will be on supporting third countries such as Turkey and Pakistan to host those fleeing Afghanistan, with a warning from the UN that as many as 500,000 people could flee the country by December. But the Turkish and Pakistani governments have warned they can't take on any new burden of refugees.
Japan and the US have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change. On a visit to Tokyo, US climate change envoy John Kerry spoke with Japanese government officials ahead of the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow later this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
It's Free Talk Live. As always, you can join us, 603-283-6160. You can talk about whatever you want, as long as you keep it FCC friendly. 603-283-6160. And with you tonight, it's Aria.
It's Ian.
And Cody.
And we were just talking about gaming in China and how online gaming is being restricted to 1 hour, 3 days per week. But you know, Americans...
For children.
For minors under...
Spiritual opium.
Yes, is what they call it.
That's what they call it. For basically video game addiction.
Yeah,
which the Chinese government does not like. They think it destroys their minions. They want good workers. They don't want people staying at home, wasting their lives or vegging out. They want them out there working.
Which is an interesting contrast to the American government, which does want people sitting at home on their couches doing nothing, being useless.
This year, anyways.
Collecting a government paycheck.
Yes.
UBI.
And we've seen obesity and anxiety and depression and all of these other things just skyrocketing as a result of it. And I can't say I'm surprised. These people have been locked in their homes out of fear, fear that they believed. But as a result, they're anxious. And obesity, you mentioned earlier, it's climbed to, I think,
35 to 45, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's climbed significantly among children.
5 to 11, so young children.
And doctors have a, quote, surprising and new, innovative way of dealing with this. They're prescribing calibrated doses of time outside to treat obesity and anxiety.
You mean like the way that we grew up, out in the woods, building forts, playing kickball, running around and almost killing each other?
You know, I started to counter you and say, well, I spent most of my time indoors playing video games, but as you went through examples, I was like, yeah, I remember doing that.
And I played video games too. I remember
so did I
had an Atari 2600 and I paid $50 for it and I got like 20 games. And I remember I played the heck out of that thing. And I was always like 3 or 4 years behind everyone else.
I was too.
So when everyone was playing Nintendo, I was playing Atari 2600 and I eventually got a Nintendo but I was out there, roughing it up at the same time. So yeah. I really feel for some of these kids that I don't know. The kids around my place there's a biker gang.
Really?
I drive by and they're out there and they like build these dirt ramps And they'll do and ditches.
That was what I spent a lot of my time as a kid doing. We had this huge backyard, this wooded area that had a number of really interesting paths to it. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna take a shovel and turn some of these into ramps and stuff.
Yeah, so not all the kids are wasting away in their in their basements or wherever they stay, but it is bad. 45% of kids are obese. That's horrible.
Yeah, when you put it like that, that's almost every other kid.
So who is suggesting that kids get sunshine and fresh air? Who is this jamoke?
Doctors is how it started so far. We'll get into, they'll probably name a few of them. When Annette Cohen went for a health checkup last summer in Washington State, she and her doctor discussed concerns around her weight and asthma. Then her doctor offered a novel prescription. Regular hikes in the woods. I'm concerned about my weight, doctor.
What do I do?
And it's novel for the doctor to say, have you tried taking a walk?
And what about your diet as well? By the way, that has got to be the worst. Talking about the FDA, I don't care what they approve because look at what they suggest that we eat. That food pyramid, it needs to be flipped upside down.
They already did that, remember?
Did they? I thought they just changed it into a pie or something where it's
no, they
all
flipped
equal
it upside
portions.
down. It's still a bunch of BS from the government, but it's the reverse.
I'll have to look at the newer.
Still don't think you should trust
newer
them.
variant, but yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
So the doctor gave Cohen a 1-year pass to Washington State Park System and told her to, quote, go for walks, go camping, do what you need to do. The lady, who is now 53, told the reporter, a year on, she said the park prescription was a, quote, great experience for her and her whole family. I have lost 30 pounds since April of this year just being out and about, she said. Amazing that being out and about doing stuff, like even if you're just walking, causes you to lose weight. Who would have thought?
But now people are being told to stay home. You can't even leave. You can't go out and get any exercise. Or if so, you better not go too far from your house. And don't forget to wear a mask.
And in Australia, you can only go outside 1 hour per day to exercise. And then you are locked in your home. And there's only so much exercise you can really do in your home. You can count walking out for the most part. Unless you're just going to walk around in circles. But that's depressing. With the COVID-19 pandemic highlighting the health benefits of spending more time outdoors, this is the first I've heard about that. I guess they do say it spreads less outdoors, so maybe that's what they mean. A growing faction of the U.S. medical community is prescribing time outside the same way they would prescribe traditional medicine. The idea of writing out park or nature prescriptions has taken hold, particularly among pediatricians. It all came together during the pandemic, said Maya Moody, president-elect of the Missouri chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, pointing to spikes in childhood anxiety and pediatric obesity since the coronavirus outbreak started. With lockdowns keeping children indoors, keeping in mind, they just said...
No, it's not the lockdowns that are doing it. It's the cowardly parents who are refusing to allow their kids to go outside or encourage their kids to go outside. If there's a bunch of kids that want to go out during the lockdowns, then there's nothing the government's going to be able to do about it.
No, and I mean, at least here in the United States, the government probably wouldn't even try. In Australia, though,
they might.
They would.
I don't know if the cops are driving around stopping lemonade stands and stuff, and kids working. You hear of these stories every now and then. Some kid's mowing lawns or something, and he gets in trouble because he's not licensed.
I'm just saying, if a bunch of kids want to go outside, it's going to look real bad for the cops to go start putting them in handcuffs and taking them back home.
And by the way, I'm looking at the new food pyramid. It's basically the same thing. They just flipped it.
That's what I told you. You said you wanted them to flip it. I said they did.
Well, they didn't. I mean flip it upside down. So
that's what they did, isn't it?
No, it's like a spectrum, and it's all like the same. It's all the same categories. It's the same size. Grains is the biggest spectrum on here. And when I say flip it, I mean the grains should be at the top.
Honestly, I hadn't seen this new variant that you're talking about with the vertical columns.
Yeah, you're eating too much processed grains and flour, and that's where you're at. Get the processed carbs out of your system and go out and get some sunshine. Eat more meat, eat more vegetables.
So Moody says they were seeing 30, 50, 60-pound weight gains during the last year and a half.
How could you I mean, my God, that's insane. For kids?
Yes. And gaining 30 pounds is a lot, but 60?
Yeah.
And by the way, it's not just kids. I've seen full-grown adults during the last year who just ballooned out of proportion. People who work often. regularly employed. So it's not someone who's locked down, but something about this last year. I think
Well, it's the lockdowns.
I think it's depression eating.
They're depressed. They're sitting around the house and they're doing nothing. I mean, instead of using that time, even if you were being told you had to stay home from work or whatever, you don't have the amount of time that it takes to drive to work anymore. Because a lot of people have what, a 40-minute, 30-minute, hour-long drive in a lot of cities to get to work.
Yeah.
You subtract, let's say you've got a 45-minute drive to work. Well, that's an hour and a half. You're on the road every single day. That's enough time for a daily workout right there.
It is.
So it's not like they didn't have time for it. They just didn't want to do it.
Excellent point. So they were seeing 30, 50, 60-pound weight increases in children. This April, she became one of about a dozen pediatricians across the state who have started offering nature prescriptions. So it's not exactly uncommon.
Wow.
When I give a prescription, it's specific, just like an antibiotic. They use it for this many days, and I say, go to this park. Buy-in has differed with different age groups, Moody noted, with younger children and their parents being more open to the approach, but teenagers expressing skepticism. 16 and 17-year-olds look at me and say, you want me to get off TikTok and get an actual tick in the woods? She said.
Oh, man.
It's stupid.
Terrified of ticks, man.
Look, you don't have to go into the woods. I mean, I get it. Ticks are nasty. There's no doubt
especially
about
here in the Northeast where
Lyme
they
disease.
Yeah.
This is where it originated.
But I got plenty of ticks on me when I lived in the South and never had an issue with
You
Lyme
can
disease.
still just walk around the city.
Also
you
true.
don't have to walk in the woods.
But Moody said that the fact that doctors and health experts are now seriously looking at how something as simple as walking in the park can help patients is exciting. A spokesman said the group is forming a committee on the issue of nature prescriptions, but declined to offer
nature prescriptions.
That's how bad it is.
If that's what they got to do to get people outside, I'm okay with it. What are your thoughts? Do you think exercising can help prevent obesity? I can't believe that isn't an obvious question. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
Who stopped her from sitting down?
People stop
Who stopped
black
Rosa
people
Parks from
before
sitting
Rosa
down?
Parks all the
Didn't
time.
she sit down?
They used force.
Didn't she
They
sit
used
down?
dogs. They used fire hoses. They brought in the National Guard. Come on, man.
Which was
It's like you don't even know what happened in your own country.
Let's get to the present. You're talking about
that's right, Mark. That's the past.
You have to be informed by history.
James, you've acknowledged that there's a bunch of bad laws today, but are you saying now that today that bad laws should be obeyed by good people?
Bad laws should be changed. And
But in
until
the
they're
meantime-
changed, you should not break them.
But in the meantime, you're saying obey all the bad laws, no matter what they say.
You need to obey the laws, yes. The way that they are
Like
written.
Rosa Parks should have.
Why don't you go kiss the boot?
All those slaves should have stayed off in their masters' houses. They shouldn't have escaped because that's illegal.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern, live on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
I'm a little obsessed with My Magic Mud. Several years ago, I met Jessica Armand, the founder and CEO of My Magic Mud, and I didn't even know my teeth were coffee stained. A week's worth of use convinced me, and now I use it every 3 or 4 days. It's clinically proven to whiten teeth, and I think it cleans better, too. My Magic Mud's available at most local health food stores, Sprouts, Natural Grocers, CVS, Walmart's Natural Beauty Aisle, but I can get it for you for 20% off with coupon code FTL20 at mymagicmud.com. FTL20 mymagicmud.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get 1 free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm.
Hi, I'm Derek J. To me, an activist's calling is to actively work to advance a cause. The cause for which I work is personal freedom. I believe my life is best when I engage in voluntary interactions and self-government. I reject the idea that anyone else has a higher claim to my life or my body than I do. I see people who call themselves the government as a threat to my personal freedom. I realize you may feel differently, but my relationship with the people who call themselves the government is completely involuntary. If Starbucks used some of its money to drop bombs, I wouldn't shop there. So why would I support the American empire? The empire does not require my consent.
Derek J's Victimless Crime Spree. Watch it for free and order the Director's Cut DVD at victimlesscrimespree.com. That's victimlesscrimespree.com. If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com to receive our usually weekly news updates by email. Plus, we have a Twitter account at twitter.freetalklive.com, and you can follow us on the decentralized Mastodon platform at toot.freetalklive.com. So please follow us at toot.freetalklive.com and sign up for our emails at news.freetalklive.com.
There are basically two types of advertising, direct response and branding. Radio's great for direct response with its low cost to listener ratio, but audio can't be beat for branding, which is a longer term endeavor. You want to be the first thing that someone thinks of when they think about your product or service. If you have a local business that you want kept top of mind in your community, call the station. If you need national reach, Free Talk Live's got around 200 radio stations, millions of monthly listening sessions, can suit all budgets, and if we don't think we're right for you, we'll tell you. Email me, mark@freetalklive.com.
Got Telegram? You can follow our channel there and discuss show prep with other listeners at telegram.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live. You're welcome to join us. Talk about whatever is on your mind. 603-283-6160. That's the call line for you to do that. 603-283-6160. Coming up September the 4th at 3:33 p.m., you can join the Smiles and Hugs for Peace virtual event. You don't need any internet or digital device to participate. The virtuality consists of the fact that Star Child will not be physically present, but will manifest for you to the extent that your magical thinking allows you to conjure his presence. If you don't know who or what he is, don't view that as an impediment to whatever magic you may experience. So at approximately 3:33 p.m. on September the 4th, you may hear the ringing of a bell or bells or other unusual sounds. Pause whatever you're doing, look around you, and start smiling. If you see someone else grinning, give that person a hug. If you see someone smiling and coming towards you, step up and give them a hug. And as you hug, hold this intention in your mind. A world based on love and cooperation, not coercion, is possible. Both smiling and hugs are healthy and good for you, containing no carcinogens, trans fats, or high fructose corn syrup. And hopefully, no artificial ingredients. September the 4th at 3:33 p.m. Now, we're talking... What were we talking about? Because I've clicked away on so many different things.
Kids.
Fat kids. Yes, thank you.
And video game addiction.
And nature prescriptions being given by doctors. They're still new, these nature prescriptions, so there isn't much data on their effectiveness.
Is this for real?
This is for real, and I'm stunned.
This
the more
is Reuters?
I'm stunned the more I read it that they have the audacity to say there's little data on the effectiveness of exercise as a treatment for obesity.
Breaking news. It's like Reuters doesn't know what's up. It's like these just open. This must be one of those. What was the Twitch channel?
It sounds like satire. I mean, it sounds like you're reading what Twitch channel?
The people who changed their complete 180 in 9 months. It sounds like these people don't. They don't know anything they learned in school.
On Twitter.
It's insane to hear this. One 2018 analysis by researchers from Britain's University of East Anglia did find, quote, they may have substantial benefits.
Taking a walk?
Yes. Yeah. There has been more research done on the general benefits of being outdoors, and one example, starting next month, a study supported by the Welsh government will look at the benefits of treating hospital patients outside. In more than 500 scientific studies in recent decades, researchers have linked time spent in nature with decreased anxiety. So remember, this is still new, and there's little data on their effectiveness, but they do have 500 scientific studies in recent years linking time spent in nature with decreased anxiety, reduced risk of obesity, and even reduced overall mortality. But this is still new, so there's little data.
Be careful, people. You might get hurt out
I know,
there.
right? Well, when you think about all the science that's been shoved down our throats over the last year, trust the science, and none of it is this. I mean, it truly is like a complete 180. Most of these people don't remember anything from back in the day. back when they were in school. What has happened? And by the way,
what's happened is that, they can say there's little data on their effectiveness, and 2 paragraphs later say there are more than 500 scientific studies, and the average reader doesn't recognize that massive contradiction.
Right.
They just see this as some new, untested thing, and that scares them.
Now, how do you treat patients outdoors?
I assume these are not people on like life support and stuff like that, right?
I mean, but everything is. This is the whole point of a hospital. It's sanitary, sterile. And then you go outside.
You don't need your hospital room to be sterile at all times.
Well, and of course, there's the argument that maybe it's too sterile, and maybe you want to be out with some fresh air and some sunshine, breathing pollen and breathing dust and all that good junk.
Well, good doctors like Ron Paul were advising people go outside back at the beginning of the so-called pandemic. He was saying, hey, look, you want to take care of yourself, the best thing to do is go out, get some sunlight, get some exercise, keep your immune system strong.
Go biking with Ron.
He does that.
He's
in his 80s.
He's an old dude.
Yeah.
So more than 500 scientific studies linking time spent in nature with decreased anxiety, reduced risk of obesity, and reduced overall mortality, said Maryland-based pediatrician Stacy Beller-Stryer. Stryer is also associate medical director with ParkRx America, an online platform that helps medical professionals write nature prescriptions. I can't imagine it's that hard. Yeah. Using its database of thousands of parks. Oh, this is why.
Oh, they have to tell people where to go.
Well, I guess they don't have to, but evidently they're choosing to. I guess it's more likely the patient will follow their instructions, like, hey, go to
the
this
doctor
particular
said
park.
I should do this.
Yes.
So, wow.
So they're using this database of thousands of parks and public lands. Prescribers filter by activity, distance from a patient's home, and amenities such as playground. Once the patient decides on where to go, so evidently the patient does decide that, the prescriber talks about what they should do. Maybe walk a dog, and how often. Maybe every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday for 30 minutes. Look, if you have a dog and you're not walking it at least once a day, you shouldn't have a dog. Writing out an actual prescription for time in nature gives patients a useful extra push, said Brent Bauer.
It really does seem like this is idiocracy at this point. I mean, to have to go to a doctor to get a prescription, to specifically go to a certain park and be told when to go and how often to go and what to do when you get there, it's just like, wow, people are doing this?
This is being obese and going to a doctor and saying, hey, I'm fat. What can I do to lose weight?
Yeah.
By the way, and here's another thing you can do too. You can move out of the cities. And you can go move out in the woods like we do. We're pretty much in the woods ourselves.
Sure, here in Keene.
But I mean, there's lots of studies that have shown that living in the cities is triggering. You're constantly stressed out. You're dealing with all the sirens and the honking horns and
that may be true, but dude,
concrete.
A couple of years ago, I went to Tokyo to visit with Roger Ver and the Bitcoin.com offices out there, and let me tell you, they don't have fatties in Tokyo.
No, but look what they eat.
But it's also a city. And so, like, the people there walk around that city. Well, there's a lot of walking in Tokyo.
This article I have pulled up actually talks about Tokyo. They do this thing called forest bathing, where they get away from the city and they go walk through the city parks and whatnot, and just hang out. But the biggest thing that they have in their favor is their diet. Mm-hmm. They're not eating the same nonsense that we eat that is banned in a lot of other countries. The synthesized sugar and whatnot, and all the processed carbs. They're eating meat.
I will say Americans are fat, though.
Oh, yeah.
So a census of park prescription programs last year estimated that there were more than 100 of these programs nationwide. More than half of my patients who receive a, quote, prescription for time in nature go ahead and do so successfully. Bauer said so.
The other half can't do it, right?
Yeah, I guess so. Or they don't want to, or they think, oh, this guy's a quack. I just wanted a pill to make me better.
That's always the solution that Americans are looking for. Just a pill.
Yep. The Pittsburgh Parks Conservancy, I'm not even going to attempt it again, began a pilot program in collaboration with the UPMC Children's Hospital in 2016 after a pediatric resident was leading patients in a weight management clinic. So at least one public park has a program with a children's hospital. They wanted to encourage patients to get outside, but didn't know where to send them, which started an inquiry from the manager of this hospital, to the park system, and it's blossomed from there. In a 2018 study, more than 80% of personnel at participating Pittsburgh clinics said that they were frequently recommending that patients visit parks. Last year, Salt Lake County in Utah offered park prescriptions to its employees, quote, to improve or maintain physical and mental health while building sustainable health behaviors.
Wow,
novel
shocking.
concept.
Yeah, the idea that like getting back to nature can calm you down and get you reconnected with things that are, you might not have been thinking about, or give you the space to, move your mind in a different direction. Do a little meditation, walking meditation.
While more doctors are looking at using time outside as a medical strategy, park prescription programs face issues of access. In low-income neighborhoods, parks are 4 times smaller and more crowded on average than parks in high-income areas, said a study. So take a walk to the high-income areas park then. It's just more exercise. It also remains unclear how to keep the programs financially sustainable because you don't need a program for it. You don't need a doctor telling you to go to the park. You don't need some sort of official program between the hospital.
But that's the sad part about this is people apparently do feel like they need to be told how to be healthy, that they can't figure this out for themselves, even though everybody's got a little computer in their hands these days. I mean, almost everyone, even poor people, have multiple devices that they can use to look up different solutions for how to lose weight.
And they want someone in a white lab coat telling them.
That's what they want.
They want
authority. They want authority.
That's where
These
we're
people want to be told what to do.
They were taught this in school at a very, very early age.
Well, all of the tips on losing weight, none of them are exercise. Gotta be honest with you. It's 100% about diet here. So, I disagree. I have to go with the doctors on this one. Definitely exercise. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
The LRN.FM social media channels have been revamped. We've eliminated Facebook and focused on other platforms like Twitter and Mastodon, the decentralized alternative to Twitter. On our accounts, you'll find posts from multiple LRN.FM show hosts together in one place. Follow us on Twitter at twitter.lrn.fm, or better yet, move to the decentralized Mastodon social media platform at toot.lrn.fm, toot.lrn.fm. I think you'll like it.
Looking for a great real estate investment? Consider New Hampshire, which is ground zero for the Liberty Movement. Your first call should be to Mark Worden from Porcupine Real Estate. He's more than just a real estate agent. He's your New Hampshire concierge. Where are the best places to live? Do you want farm, city, the burbs, or forest? Do you want a duplex or multifamily building so that renters pay your mortgage? There are homes in all price ranges in New Hampshire, and Mark can help with financing too. Invest in liberty and property. Mark Worden can help.
PorcupineRealEstate.com.
There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in Washington, I'm Simon Marks.
Last night in Kabul, the United States ended 20 years of war in Afghanistan. The longest war in American history.
President Biden with a full-throated defense at the White House today of his decision to withdraw U.S. forces from Afghanistan, his insistence that he planned for every eventuality, that the U.S. has no overwhelming national security interest in Afghanistan, and that he is certain he's doing the right thing for the United States.
I take responsibility for the decision. Now some say we should have started mass evacuation sooner And couldn't this have been done in a more orderly manner? I respectfully disagree. Imagine if we'd begun evacuations in June or July, bringing in thousands of American troops and evacuating more than 120,000 people in the middle of a civil war. There still would have been a rush to the airport, a breakdown in confidence and control of the government, and it still would have been a very difficult and dangerous mission. The bottom line is there is no evacuation from the end of a war that you can run without the kinds of complexities, challenges, and threats we faced. None.
Republicans are accusing President Biden of betrayal and cowardice. On Capitol Hill today, their leader in the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy.
What is the plan to get Americans out? Never in my lifetime would I ever believe America would have an administration knowingly make a decision to leave Americans behind. Whereas just 2 weeks ago, the president promised this nation that he would not leave until every single American was out.
European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover of Afghanistan. There's division among member states on how to deal with the flow of migrants the crisis is expected to produce. From FSN's Brussels bureau, Lucy Hoff has more.
The European Union is keen not to see a repeat of 2015, which saw the influx of more than 1 million people into the bloc's borders. The EU says its focus will be on supporting third countries such as Turkey and Pakistan to host those fleeing Afghanistan, with a warning from the UN that as many as 500,000 people could flee the country by December. But the Turkish and Pakistani governments have warned they can't take on any new burden of refugees.
Japan and the US have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change. On a visit to Tokyo, US climate change envoy John Kerry spoke with Japanese government officials ahead of the COP26 climate conference in Glasgow later this year. From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. With FSN Spotlight, I'm Simon Marks. Looking today at the crackdown in China on video games. The government in Beijing has announced that Chinese gamers under the age of 18 will only be allowed to play 1 hour a day on Fridays, weekends and public holidays, and only between 8 and 9 o'clock in the evening. The move comes a few weeks after one of the country's leading newspapers, a mouthpiece of the ruling Communist Party, described video games as spiritual opium. So what will the impact of the restrictions be on the gaming industry? Will Guyot is FSN's tech reporter.
The Chinese games market generates an estimated $46 billion of revenue every year. But this crackdown has been heard all around the world. We've had companies like Ubisoft, the video games company, they lost around 5% of their share price when this news was announced. We've also heard of Chinese gaming stocks sliding. The big concern here is that because so many Chinese people play games, you've got 62.5% of under 18 Chinese minors playing games online. There's going to be it's going to be really interesting to see what happens over the weeks and months ahead.
Facial recognition is expected to be used to impose the ban. The restrictions are a big gamble by the Chinese government and could fuel opposition from many young gamers. The main news again, President Biden has offered a full-throated defense of his decision to withdraw US forces from Afghanistan. European Union justice ministers have held talks to discuss the Taliban's takeover in Kabul. And Japan and the United States have reaffirmed their commitment to tackling climate change in talks designed to prepare for the COP26 conference in Glasgow later this year. There's more from us on Twitter @FeatureStory. And that is the latest Feature Story news. Simon Marks reporting.
Shortly after being fired from his coding position at a downsizing tech firm, 34-year-old Irvine native Sam Morrison told reporters Monday that he believed he had finally achieved the sort of work-life balance for which he has long strived.
Ever since I got fired, it just seems like my whole entire routine is just clicking. I go for jogs in the afternoon, spend nights with my wife and kid. I'm even cooking more. Everything just feels right.
Morrison, who since his termination has found time to pick up reading again, eat a healthy diet, and sleep more than 5 hours a night, noted that his unemployment has allowed him to find a level of harmony in his personal life that he never before thought possible.
For a while there, I thought that I was going to spend the rest of my life constantly worrying about getting to the office on time and pleasing my boss. Outside of the late payments on the house, the mounting credit card debt, the rapidly depleting savings, my life is essentially stress-free. I honestly couldn't be happier.
This is the Onion News Network.
Free Talk Live.
It is Free Talk Live. You're invited to join us, 603-283-6160 if you want to do that. That's 603-283-6160. With you tonight is Arya, Ian, and Conan, and I want to switch gears here to talk about this article I found earlier in the day that I absolutely love, even though it's about cancel culture, but not in the way that you think. It starts out by quoting the Scarlet Letter. I'm going to skip over the quote because it has, from what I could tell, it has nothing to do with the actual article. So begins the tale of Hester Prynne, as recounted in Nathaniel Hawthorne's most famous novel, The Scarlet Letter. As readers of this classic American text know, I've never read it, and I'm starting to think that's probably a lapse in my education. I probably should take the time to read it.
You know the premise, though, right?
I only do from reading this. The story begins after Hester gives birth to a child out of wedlock and refuses to name the father. As a result, she's sentenced to be mocked by a jeering crowd, undergoing, quote, an agony from every footstep of those that throng to see her, as if her heart had been flogged. They could have skipped that. After that, she must wear a scarlet A for adulterer pinned to her dress for the rest of her life. On the outskirts of Boston, she lives in exile. No one will socialize with her, not even those who have quietly committed similar sins, among them the father of her child, the saintly village preacher. The Scarlet Letter has the effect of a spell, taking her out of the ordinary relations with humanity and enclosing her in a sphere by herself. We read that story with a certain self-satisfaction, such an old-fashioned tale. Even Hawthorne sneered at the Puritans with their sad-colored garments and gray steepled crowned hats, their strict conformism, their narrow minds, and their hypocrisy. And today we are not just hip and modern. We live in a land governed by the rule of law. We have procedures designed to prevent the meting out of unfair punishment. Scarlet Letters are a thing of the past.
Yeah, right.
Except they aren't.
When was this written?
It's recent.
Yeah, I found it today, so it was probably today. Except they aren't. Right here in America, right now, it is possible to meet people who have lost everything, jobs, money, friends, colleagues, after violating no laws and sometimes no workplace rules either. Instead, they have broken, or are merely accused of having broken, social codes having to do with race, sex, personal behavior, or even acceptable humor, which may not have existed 5 years ago or maybe 5 months ago. Some have made egregious errors or judgment. Some have done nothing at all. It isn't always easy to tell. Yet despite the disputed nature of these cases, it's become both easy and useful for some people to put them into larger narratives. Partisans, especially on the right, now toss around the phrase cancel culture when they want to defend themselves from criticism, however legitimate. But dig into the story of anyone who has been a genuine victim of modern mob justice, and you will often find not an obvious argument between, quote, woke and anti-woke perspectives, but rather incidents that are interpreted, described, or remembered by different people in different ways, even leaving aside whatever political or intellectual issue may be at stake. There's a reason that Science reporter Donald McNeil, after being asked to resign from the New York Times, needed 21,000 words published in 4 parts to recount a series of conversations he had with high school students in Peru, during which he may or may not have said something racially offensive, depending on whose account you find most persuasive. There's a reason that Laura Kipnis, an academic at Northwestern, required an entire book to recount the repercussions, including to herself, of 2 allegations of sexual harassment against one man at her university after she referred to the case in an article about sexual paranoia. Students demanded that the university investigate her too. A full explanation of the personal, professional, and political nuances in both cases needed a lot of space. By contrast to Nathaniel's world, the modern online public sphere, a place of rapid conclusions, rigid ideological prisms, and arguments of 280 characters, favors neither nuance nor ambiguity. Yet the values of that online sphere have come to dominate many American cultural institutions, universities, newspapers, foundations, museums. Heeding public demands for rapid retribution, they sometimes impose the equivalent of lifetime scarlet letters on people who have not been accused of anything remotely resembling a crime. Instead of courts, they use secretive bureaucracies. Instead of hearing evidence and witnesses, they make judgments behind closed doors. I've been trying to understand these stories for a long time, both because I believe that the principle of due process underpins liberal democracy, and also because they remind me of other times and places. I wrote a book about the Sovietization of Central Europe and found that much of the political conformism of the early communist period was the result not of violence or direct state coercion, but rather of intense peer pressure. Even without a clear risk to their life, people felt obliged, not just for the sake of their career, but for their children, their friends, their spouse, to repeat slogans that they didn't believe, like, get the vaccine, maybe, or just put on the mask.
Now, I'm curious. I found this story as well. I had not gone through it in any meaningful sense to see what conclusions they were coming to or where they're coming from, but it's interesting that it's in the Atlantic, which so far in the last year or so has been vehemently pro-vaccine, completely against any kind of questioning the official narrative. So I do find myself wondering
where this is going,
where it's going, or where this author is coming from, because it's unusual that this story so far would appear in the Atlantic.
Maybe he's getting ready to get canceled himself, and this is his parting
swan song.
Yeah, exactly.
I got to be honest, I did not read the entire article. I read
can't blame you. It's long.
I read a fair bit of it and was like, okay, this is pretty good for the show. I mean, it's a refreshing perspective, and I had never thought about comparing modern-day things to the Scarlet Letter, which is far more appropriate than comparisons to, wearing a star during Nazi Germany.
The system of excommunication that Hawthorne was writing about, it is so alive in our present day. You see it everywhere. It's at every level, and you know who the perpetrators are most often. It's the people we were talking about in the last segment, the 180ers, these people on Twitch and all of these other social medias who changed their entire Yeah,
and if they find something you said 9 months ago that conflicts with what they believe at this exact moment, they will cancel you.
Correct. They'll get together and they will call your employer. And they'll be like, do you know what this person said 3 years ago, 10 years ago? You need to do something about this. Otherwise, we're gonna set up a boycott of your company. And these employers, they always cave, or whatever administration, whether it be a school or a hospital or anything. These people are vicious, and they know how to do it because it's working.
Yep, and that's more evidence that we don't need Stalinism to create this kind of atmosphere. During a trip to Turkey earlier this year, the author met a writer who I'm going to switch back to the author's perspective here. I met a writer who showed me his latest manuscript, kept in a desk drawer. His work wasn't illegal, it was just unpublishable. Turkish newspapers, magazines, and publishing houses are subject to unpredictable prosecutions and drastic sentences for speech or writing that can be arbitrarily construed as insulting the president or the Turkish nation. Fear of these sanctions leads to self-censorship and silence. In America, of course, we don't have that kind of state coercion. Oh, yes, we do.
Oh, yes, we do. You say something bad about anybody, any politician, and the mob is gonna come after you.
Well, no, we have that direct state coercion here in the United States. We talked about it, I think, yesterday here on the show. It may have been, I think it was yesterday.
You mean working hand in hand with Silicon Valley?
The U.S. government is telling Facebook what posts to flag. The U.S. government is monitoring Facebook and saying, hey, we don't like this post. Make it go away.
Is it that way, or is it the other way around?
It is that way. The White House press secretary admitted this, saying, hey, yes, we're flagging problematic posts for Facebook.
I thought Zuckerberg was doing all this on his own.
Nope. He probably is.
Working hand in hand with government. I think they're on the same team. It's not like they're telling each other. They're not telling each other what to do. They're working together. They're working together.
No, they're not. And the White House press secretary for the Biden administration has straight out said this, that they are telling Facebook what posts to remove.
Hey, screw your freedoms.
Right?
I'm telling you.
So, I mean, we do have that sort of state coercion going on right now where the U.S. government is monitoring Facebook, and Twitter, I think, was another one, and YouTube is saying, hey, we don't like this. This needs to go away.
And now you got Australia doing the same thing.
That said, though, I mean, we still do have more semblance of freedom of speech here than in Turkey.
That's true.
You and I are talking right now about what the government gang is doing. Now, to be fair, they did raid the studio back in March.
They did arrest both of us like 6 months ago.
For the most part, most people still have the ability to criticize the government in the United States.
And we have guns.
And Turkey is ranked number 153 on the rankings of press freedom, the World Press Freedom Index. The U.S. is 44.
Yeah, we're certainly not as bad as Turkey, but there is state coercion going on here. There's more coming up from this article because it gets into a number of fascinating subjects that I think are worth bringing up. What are your thoughts on censorship? Are we dealing with the scarlet letter type of things? 603-283-6160.
When a lunar observatory detects a radio broadcast originating from Proxima Centauri, the nations of Earth discover their first contact with an alien race may also be their last. With the Proximans facing an extinction-level disaster, Earth must choose between sending a ship on a multi-year journey or allowing nature to take its course. Saving Proxima, a hard science fiction thriller by Travis S. Taylor and Les Johnson from BaneBooks.com.
Are you tired of governments murdering people around the world? Stop using their money. There is an alternative. Bitcoin is a stateless, free market, non-political currency. Bitcoin cannot be inflated or controlled by any government. By using their money, you are helping the state. Stop doing it. You have an incredible alternative available now. Learn it, use it, spread it. Get started with Bitcoin at bitcoin.com. That's bitcoin.com.
Do you feel like your nation, state, or community no longer holds your values? Have you dreamt of a place where people agree that liberty is important and are free to pursue their projects so long as they respect the property of others? There are many people just like you that are discovering freeprivatecities.com. Their social media links are at the upper right of the page at freeprivatecities.com. All skill levels will be needed when the first of the Free Private Cities opens. It's sooner than you think. Stop arguing and build. freeprivatecities.com.
Breaking weather news. Belize is sunny and around 82 degrees every day this week.
What's the forecast for your life? If current politics and economic prospects are cramping your freedom, escape to the tropics. ECI Development has affordable second homes for you to own or rent in Belize and other tropical countries. Places with stable governments and growing economies. Secure your freedom now. To find out more, send an email to ftl@ecidevelopment.com.
On Free Talk Live, we're bringing people to the ideas of liberty every day. From wrestling superstars like Glenn Jacobs.
You guys really are having an impact, I believe. Like I said, a lot of where I am now is due to listening to Free Talk Live. You changed my mind on some very important issues years ago.
To random people tuning in on the radio.
I was kind of stuck in the left-right paradigm. I heard your show by chance on a Saturday night. From there, I went on, joined the Free State Project, and become an amplifier. So, I mean, that's really the reason why I amp is because I know that if it wasn't for you guys being on as many stations as you are, I never would have found the ideas of liberty.
Your amp will directly change more lives by getting Free Talk Live in front of people looking for talk radio online and on the air. When you amp Free Talk Live, you get perks like access to the AMP-only Facebook group and AMP podcast. Visit amp.freetalklive.com. What if you want to hear the latest episode of Free Talk Live, but all you have is your phone, you forgot to download our archive, and you have no data connection? You can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com.
Do you appreciate what we do? Help us advertise, market, and promote for just $5 a month at amp.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live, where last year we told you about Intercoin, which can help any business and organization launch their own currency or raise money using their own token. Now, Intercoin.org has launched worldwide, so if there's a token you want to launch or an app you want to build, go to Intercoin.org, enter your email, and the team there will get in touch with you and learn about your needs. And while you're there, if you want, get some Intercoins for yourself, Intercoin.org, I-N-T-E-R coin.org. But you're invited to join us, 603-283-6160. With you tonight, it's Arya.
It's Ian.
And Conan.
And we are talking about this article here that's all about cancel culture, basically. Here is the first thing that happens when you have been accused of breaking a social code, when you find yourself at the center of a social media storm because of something you said or allegedly said. The phone stops ringing, people stop talking to you, you become toxic. I have in my department dozens of colleagues. I think I've spoken to 0 of them in the past year, one academic told me. One of my colleagues I had lunch with at least once a week for more than a decade. He just refused to speak to me anymore without asking questions. Another figured that of the 20-odd members in his department, there are 2, one of whom has no power and another of whom is about to retire, who will now speak to me. A journalist told me that after he was summarily fired, his acquaintances sorted themselves into 3 groups. First, the heroes, very small in number, who, quote, insist on due process before damaging another person's life and who stick by their friends. Second, the villains, who think you should, quote, immediately lose your livelihood as soon as the allegation is made. Some old friends, or people he thought were old friends, even joined the public attack.
I've been through this.
And what's the third group? The fence sitters?
The majority, good but useless. They don't necessarily think the worst of you, and they would like you to get due process, but they haven't looked into it. They have reasons to think charitably of you, but they're too busy to help, or they have too much to lose.
So this author is, in fact...
No, he's quoting a journalist.
Oh, okay. So, because I'm of the opinion this author might be on his way out. I think he's...
Well, if this author was one of the people this has happened to, evidently The Atlantic wouldn't have published his piece, or her piece. Most people drift away because life moves on. Others do so because they are afraid that those unproven allegations might imply something far worse. One professor who has not been accused of any physical contact with anybody was astonished to discover that some of his colleagues assumed that if his university was disciplining him, he must be a rapist. Another person suspended from his job put it this way: someone who knows me but maybe doesn't know my soul or character may be saying to themselves that prudence would dictate they keep their distance lest they become collateral damage. So here's the second thing that happens. Even if you have not been suspended, punished, or found guilty of anything, you cannot function in your profession. If you are a professor, no one wants you as a teacher or mentor. The graduate students made it obvious to me that I was a non-person and could not be tolerated, one professor said. You cannot publish in professional journals. You cannot quit your job because no one else will hire you. If you're a journalist, you might find you can no longer publish at all. After losing his job as editor of the New York Review of Books in a #MeToo related editorial dispute, he wasn't accused of assault, just of printing an article by someone who was. Ian Baruma discovered that several of the magazines where he had been writing for 3 decades would no longer publish him. One editor said something about younger staff at his magazine, although a group of more than 100 New York Review of Books contributors had signed a public letter in Baruma's defense. This editor evidently feared his colleagues more than he did Joyce Carol Oates, one of the authors. For many, intellectual and professional life...
I want to jump in here.
Yeah.
So, I've been through some of this back when the first raid happened here in 2016, which they said they were looking for child pornography in our studios, which they never found. 5 years later, they still have the equipment, but no charges have been brought against anyone for that. I did have a teenage girlfriend at the time, and so it was interesting, like the very things that he's talking about here. There were the people that stuck with me, and then there were the people that I thought were my friends that turns out they weren't, and they, turned on me, basically. So all of the things
that's so sad, man.
Yeah. And now in my case, I didn't have a job, so I didn't have to deal with whatever job-related fallout that he's describing. I'm here on the air. This is my show. I created it. But there was definitely some things that happened. A couple of shows mysteriously decided they wanted to no longer be on LRN.FM. And they didn't explain their answers as to why they didn't want to be on were not clear. Like they weren't honorable enough to like actually explain themselves when I asked. But I'm like, okay, you don't want to be on anymore. That's fine. I'll respect your requests.
You got to have a pretty good reason
off.
as a content creator, though, to not want to have your content on a platform that isn't costing you anything to have it on.
That's why it was bewildering to me. You know? I presume it had to do with what had happened, and although I never got a straight answer, I did years later get an answer from one person who I won't name as far as who it was, but that person basically said they had heard something about me regarding to something that they thought that they'd heard that I said about the age of consent or something like that, or that I was like a rapist or some. I forget exactly what it was, so I don't want to, again, say who it was. But whatever it was that they heard, they never bothered to actually ask me about it. Like this person who had been on the...
Or to listen to the show that got taken totally out of context and blown out of proportion.
Yeah, and he admitted he didn't listen to the thing. He had just heard it from somebody about what I had allegedly said about supporting rape of children or something like that, which of course is ridiculous, and I've never said anything like that. But the person and I had a relationship to where this guy was on the network every single day. And was regularly, like, I dealt with him regularly. He wasn't like some sideshow that I never talked to or anything like that. And I said, well, you could have just talked to me.
Yeah.
And he didn't have anything to say about it.
That's depressing. That's what the author here points out. That's the third category of person who just, they want to believe the best, but they don't talk to you. They don't ask you about it. They just disassociate.
Yep.
For some people, this can result in a catastrophic loss of income. Ludlow moved to Mexico because he could live more cheaply there. For others, it can create an identity crisis. After describing the various jobs he had held in the months since being suspended from his teaching job, one of the academics I interviewed seemed to choke up, saying, "I'm really only good at one thing," he told me, and pointed to mathematical formulas on a blackboard behind him and said this.
Those who can do.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, I think that it's
those who can't teach.
I mean, these things are frustrating for people that go through them, but I'm glad that it happened because I wouldn't want to be around the two-faced people, and I'm glad I got to find out who those people were.
That's true.
It's every now and then it's good to clean out your friends list, and sometimes you don't know where people really stand until the crazy happens.
Right, until they have to take a side.
Yep.
The third thing that happens is that you try to apologize whether or not you have done anything wrong. Robert George, a Princeton philosopher who has acted as a faculty advocate for students and professors who have fallen into legal or administrative difficulties, I assumed you did not apologize because you didn't say what they accuse you of saying.
Yeah, right.
Okay. They have been popular and successful their whole lives. That's how they climbed the ladder to their academic positions. And then suddenly there's this terrible feeling of everybody hates me. So what do? More often than not, they just cave in and apologize. I said, what am I apologizing for? And they said, well, their feelings were hurt. Imagine apologizing because someone's feelings were hurt over something you said. 603-283-6160. There's more coming up. It's Free Talk Live.
Carl Watner, longtime proponent of a voluntary society, died last December. You may have seen his articles published on his website, voluntarist.com, in his newsletter, The Voluntarist, the Mises Institute, or elsewhere over the last 40 years. His newest book, I Must Speak Out, Volume 2, The Best of the Voluntarist, is now available via Liberty Under Attack Publications. This 430-page second volume spans the years of 2000 through 2020 and includes articles by Carl Watner, Hans Hermann Hoppe, Carl Hess, Benjamin Tucker, George H. Smith, Lysander Spooner, Pete Eyre, Joyce Brand, and many others. I Must Speak Out is for the newly initiated, the veteran voluntarist, or anywhere in between. Buy the book now at libertyunderattack.com/voluntarist. For more great content on building a voluntary society and for Carl's extensive archives, check out voluntarist.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer. America's longest war may be over, but the fight for the legacy of the president who ended it has only just begun. Joe Biden faces a political backlash so strong that even his supporters wonder whether he can survive it. And a day after the last U.S. planes left Kabul, some 200 Americans remain stranded. FSN's Nina Maria Potts has the latest from Washington.
While Afghans are grappling with a brutal new reality, so too is America's president. He faces an unrelenting avalanche of bipartisan criticism. In a televised address to the nation after the last U.S. planes left Afghanistan, he defended his choices.
I was not going to extend this forever war, and I was not extending a forever exit.
The focus of both Republican and Democratic anger is the fact that he's left Americans behind. House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy.
Never in my lifetime would I ever believe America would have an administration knowingly make a decision to leave Americans behind.
The political showdown kicking off in Washington is already turning nasty. And it's not the victory any president could have wished for. Nina Maria Potts, Washington.
New mandatory evacuation orders have been issued in California and Nevada. People have been told to pack up and leave the area near the famous Lake Tahoe recreation area as a raging wildfire burns through the region. FSN's Rachel Silverman has this report from Oakland.
The mega fire known as the Caldor Fire has grown to more than 190,000 acres and is only 16% contained after 2 weeks. Cal Fire officials say hot, dry conditions are fueling the flames, spreading among the treetops. And that's just one of the fires raging through the area. New evacuations have also been ordered in Plumas County, California, where the second largest wildfire in California history has burned more than 80,000 acres.
U.S. markets fell slightly on Wednesday, pulled down by tech and banking stocks. But August has seen the S&P hit 7 straight months of gains. FSN's Sarah Walton reports from New York.
All three major indices ended the day just into the red. The Dow and the S&P closed down 0.1%, while the Nasdaq ended the day down by just less than 0.1%. But despite ongoing concerns about the spread of the Delta variant of COVID-19 in the US, the market still recorded gains for the month of August. The S&P has now hit its longest winning streak since a 10-month run in 2017. On Wednesday, shares in Zoom lost 16% of their price after the company reported a slowdown in revenue growth in the second quarter. Nevertheless, the company beat earnings estimates, and new figures showed home prices in the US rose by nearly 19% annually in June, up from 17% in May. Sarah Walton, New York.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com.
It is Free Talk Live. As always, you can join us, 603-283-6160, because that's what we do here at Free Talk Live. We empower you to express your opinions, to share your thoughts on national radio. And if you value that, you may consider joining the AMP program. You can find it at amp.freetalklive.com, and you can join it like Roderick Gallatin did. He's a platinum level amplifier, which means that Roderick is giving $25 or more per month to the AMP program. We don't ask that much, though. To join the program, all it takes is $5 per month. That gets you in. And it's money that is used solely to advertise, market, and promote Free Talk Live, to get us on more radio stations, to get more podcast downloads, and all of that awesome stuff. So if you value that, if you value Free Talk Live and the idea of a libertarian radio show on close to 200 radio stations, check out the AMP program at amp.freetalklive.com. Speaking of the phones, though, let's go to them. We have Pizza Cake Man calling. Pizza Cake Man, you're on Free Talk Live.
How's it going this evening, guys?
Hey, what's on your mind?
So, have you been paying attention to what's going on in Australia, and do you feel like they kind of deserve it, seeing as they were originally a prison colony anyway, and they've allowed their entire continent to become a prison state?
I get the sense you don't listen to the show much these days.
You're talking like the sins of the father? Yeah, I don't go for that at all. But yeah, we did talk about it for the first 30 minutes of this of this morning.
And we've been talking about it a lot.
I just got here. Today. It's been a rough week. But no, I was listening to you guys last week. I do come in on occasion, not as often as I used to. But yeah, I've just been. I wanted to point out how hilarious it is that these people have gotten themselves into this situation, and now it's spreading here. And I'm ready for it. I'm armed. I have reserves. I'm ready to move if necessary. Hopefully you are too. But the United States is slowly and surely becoming a prison state like the rest of the planet. And I'm with Alex Jones on this. We need to fight back.
Well, where are you gonna move to? I mean,
Well,
where is safe?
We have to stay in areas that are rural. We have to stay away from areas where they're easily controllable. Tight city streets, things like that. We need to stay in the woods. We need to stay in rural communities and gather individuals. And after that, obviously, there's going to be tons of infiltrators. So it's not about being violent. It's about being able to defend yourselves. And that's the key. Nobody needs to be violent, but everyone needs to prepare to be violent to defend your life.
Well, I would add to that as well, not only be able to defend yourself, not only get out of the cities and get away from these population control centers, but you also need to spend a good amount of time preparing yourself, you're the individual that you speak of, to survive the onslaught that you are pretty sure is going to happen. And I'm kind of in the same boat.
I don't think there's anything wrong with somebody defending themselves if they're attacked, but on the other hand, I also don't think that violence is going to be the answer. I don't think that violence does anything more than beget violence ultimately, especially if you're talking about the rise of the police state or the state in general being the violent ones. Using violence against them is usually going to result in your total extermination.
Yeah, which is not effective.
And then
activism.
They will use you as their excuse to get more violent.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to agree. I don't think violence is the solution. I like the solution that we're working on here in New Hampshire, which is to declare independence from the United States. Peacefully declare independence from the United States. Just have New Hampshire declare itself its own sovereign government, and then it doesn't really matter what the United States government does to its citizens, because we're no longer citizens of the United States at that point.
Well, and if you've got enough people on your side, and Pizza Cake Man did talk about gathering people together, if you do have enough people on your side, you don't need to be violent. You can have enough people to do massive civil disobedience, massive non-cooperation. If you have enough people that don't want to follow some stupid government diktat or pay some tax or whatever it is, whatever their demand is, if enough people don't go along with it, it is not as, it doesn't exist. People have to be obedient. They have to obey. They have to ultimately consent to what the government is doing to them. And that's what's the saddest part about Australia, is how many people are going along to get along and voluntarily locking themselves up when being told to.
Yeah, I'm under the impression that Australia is going to have to suffer in order to get enough people to wake up. I think that right now...
Yeah, the truckers aren't enough.
The truckers, it's got to be the farmers, it's got to be the police, it's got to be the military, it's got to be everybody. And I don't think that they have felt enough of the pain to pull their heads up out of the sand and sadly and stick up for themselves.
But speaking of, gathering people together, I mean, that's what the Free State Project has been attempting to do here in New Hampshire, is gather libertarians here so that, we can achieve libertarian goals like seceding from the United States government and lowering taxes and creating choice in schools and other obvious libertarian things. I see no reason that at any point at this stage, people should be seriously contemplating defending themselves against enforcers of the state. To me, that's silly.
Yeah, Ruby Ridge, David Koresh. These are people who try to do the same thing. They try to go out in the woods, do their own thing, and the state does not like that. They made examples of those people very quickly.
Speaking of people having examples made of them, that's pretty much what happens with cancel culture. And even if you apologize, which is what we were left off with before the last break, even if you apologize, it doesn't really help the situation. More often than not, apologies will be parsed and examined for sincerity and then rejected. Howard Bachner, the editor of the Journal of the American Medical Association, apologized for something he'd had nothing directly to do with after one of his colleagues made controversial comments on a podcast and on Twitter about whether communities of color were held back more by, quote, structural racism or by socioeconomic factors.
And probably said it 10 years ago as well.
Well, I don't know what difference it could make. The structural racism could cause the socioeconomic factors, and the socioeconomic factors would cause the structural racism. So both of those are leftist talking points, but he was still canceled because of it. He's got Buckner here, who was just this. One of his colleagues said this, says, "I remain profoundly disappointed in myself for the lapses that led to the publishing of the tweet and podcast. Although I did not write or even see the tweet or create the podcast, as editor-in-chief, I am ultimately responsible for them." He ended up resigning, but this too is typical because apologies have become ritualized. They invariably seem insincere. Websites even offer sample templates for people who need to apologize. Yeah.
By the way, speaking of cancel culture and people being racist, probably this guy, probably many years ago, someone dragged it up. Why doesn't Biden ever get canceled? He said all kinds of racist things in his time.
That's a good question,
and
man.
That audio is floating around. He's talking about he doesn't want his kids going to a jungle or something.
I haven't heard that.
Even on the debate stage, he was Kamala was calling him out, and no one's ever canceled. No, everyone still voted for him. So why do they pick? They pick and choose. They pick and choose who they want to cancel, and I don't understand the algorithm.
Well, they can't cancel the president.
Sure, they can. Not vote for him. They could have picked someone.
That's true.
But
then Trump would have won.
There were other options.
Not in their minds.
I don't even get it.
Yeah. And they don't even want an apology. One former journalist told me that his ex-colleagues don't want to endorse the process of mistake, apology, understanding, forgiveness. They don't want to forgive. Instead, he said, they want to punish and purify. But the knowledge that whatever you say will never be enough is debilitating. If you make an apology, you know in advance that your apology will not be accepted. That is going to be considered a move in a psychological or cultural or political game. Then the integrity of your introspection is being mocked, and you feel permanently marooned in a world of unforgivingness, and that is a truly unethical world. Even after the apology is made, though, a fourth thing happens. People begin to investigate you. One person I spoke with told me he believed he was investigated because his employer didn't want to offer severance compensation and needed extra reasons to justify the termination. Another thought an investigation launched on him was for an argument over language, because an argument over language would have violated the union contract. So instead, maybe he hugged someone inappropriately once, or something worse. Nobody's perfect, nobody is pure, and once people set out to interpret ambiguous incidents in a way, it's not hard to find new evidence.
The Free State Project has reached its goal of 20,000 liberty lovers who've pledged to move to New Hampshire and get active to achieve liberty in our lifetime. Perhaps you're trying to figure out what part of New Hampshire should be your destination. If so, consider Keene. You'll find more than 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com. Keene is famous for its historic, publicity-generating activism, as well as being the liberty media capital of the world. It's home to freekeene.com, New Hampshire's destination for liberty activism, news, and opinion. For years, we've been compiling over 150 reasons to move to Keene at move.freekeene.com, where you'll learn about some of what's happening here and what makes Keene a great place to live. If you love liberty, you'll probably enjoy anywhere you end up in the Shire. But do your due diligence first. Please visit move.freekeene.com for the full list of over 150 reasons to move to Keene. That's move.freekeene.com. The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
This is Michael Dean from the Freedom Fiends. I've run websites since 1996 and have used over a dozen web hosts in that time. AgristHosting.com is the only one that hasn't broken my heart. Agrist Hosting's uptime and service is stellar, and their DDoS mitigation is the best I've seen. That's important because if you tell the truth in this world, you'll ruffle feathers. And some people will try dirty tricks to silence your voice. No matter what the haters hit us with, Agrist Hosting keeps our websites online. If you have a mission-critical commercial presence or a world-changing activism site, you cannot tolerate any skullduggery. So go with agristhosting.com. Have a WordPress or blog site, but you're not satisfied with performance or uptime? Or just want raw hosting? Want to pay with Bitcoin? Agrist Hosting specializes in high-performance hosting with personalized service. Go to agristhosting.com and click on the button that says Get Hosted. That's agristhosting.com.
Some of you asked, and now we've delivered. LRN.FM's live Keene, New Hampshire studio shows are now streamed in HD on Twitch. Visit our channel at twitch.lrn.fm and give it a follow. If you have Amazon Prime, you get one free subscription on Twitch. If you use it on our channel, Twitch will give LRN.FM a monthly piece of your Prime subscription cost. So please watch, follow, share, and subscribe to twitch.lrn.fm. That's twitch.lrn.fm. Are you a cryptocurrency advocate? The Crypto Tip is the ideal outreach tool to help new people discover cryptocurrency. It's a printable business card-sized tip that you can give to service providers, preferably in addition to a good cash tip. When the server scans the QR code, it'll bring up an explanation of cryptocurrency, how to install a wallet, and allow them to claim the tip. If they don't claim the crypto, you get your tip refunded to you after a time period you specify. Plus, if they do claim the tip, you get an email alert. Create as many tips as you want at cryptotip.org. That's cryptotip.org.
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
It's Free Talk Live, where you're invited to join us. 603-283-6160 if you want to do that. And with you tonight, it's Arya, Ian, and Conan. And we've got to move on from this article that we've been talking about, cancel culture. You can find it at...
The Atlantic.
No, what's the Wellbird thing? What is that? The social.freetalklive.com. There's so many different links. So that's social.freetalklive. You can find it over there because it goes on for far longer than it should, and a lot of it's fluff. So
it's the Atlantic. All of their articles are like that. They're really lengthy.
I don't read them very often. I mean, we're like 2/3 of the way through the article. I'm like, okay, I'm done. I got to move on here. It's fascinating, but it's not fascinating enough to eat that much of the show.
The Scarlet Leather is alive and well in even today's time, and it's just going to turn into something. You know, every generation is going to have their variant.
Well, I think the point he was making toward the last part that we were looking at was there were people who were apologizing for, in some cases, things they didn't even do, but they were being blamed for or whatever, and they were taking heat for in their jobs. And it's focusing mostly on academia and journalism and people in those positions and what it's like to get caught up.
And they have guides on how to do it right.
And what it's like to get caught up in this controversy where people take sides and you can lose jobs and lose contracts and all that. And some people think that apologizing for a thing that they didn't actually do where there was anything wrong is going to help them, and it doesn't.
Yeah, did you see that? It
just makes them look weak.
It's like the South Park episode when Stan's father dropped the N-word, and the whole episode was him going to the right people and apologizing to the right people. And they were. I mean, that's an old episode. That's got to be 5-6 years old.
And how'd that work out for him?
It didn't. Mm-hmm. He had to go to. He went to what's it?
I'm trying to remember.
Who's the
now.
Reverend Sharpton?
No, Jesse James.
Jesse Jackson.
Jesse Jackson. Yeah,
he had to kiss him on the ring or something.
And
no,
he didn't kiss his ring.
It was on his butt. It was his butt. But yeah, it didn't work for him.
Yeah.
And so if you comply with these mobsters, it's the mob.
Yeah.
If you let them run you rough, you're not going to get out of it. You're not going to win. You might as well just stand up for yourself from the get-go.
You won't respect yourself.
Exactly. You won't be able to wake up in the morning.
And the people who had sided with you will turn. They won't respect you for it. And the people that were against you aren't going to all of a sudden embrace you. So then you really will be in nowhere man's land.
Excommunicated.
Yep. But I want to move on to this article that you brought in, Conan, about this judge in Chicago, because we wanted to get to it last night, but we ended up not getting to it. And it's a horrifying precedent.
It is horrifying. It's a sign of the times. As the cases start to rise this fall, and maybe even some more variants that we haven't heard. Maybe the Doomsday variant is on its way.
Oh, well, there is a new South African variant.
What's it called?
I don't 3.1.c or something like that.
They haven't given it a cute name yet.
No, but they will. I'm hoping it's the Doomsday variant. Let's get this over with.
Article is a sign of things to come, and people in power abusing their power. A judge in Illinois revoked a mother's right to visit her 11-year-old son because she refused to be vaccinated against the coronavirus.
Wow. And this is because of her doctor's advice, as it turns out.
Her refusal of the vaccine is because of her doctor's advice, correct. In what is believed to be an unprecedented ruling, Cook County Judge James Shapiro said Rebecca Furlett, 39, who shares custody of her son with her divorced husband, could not see the boy again until she had taken the shot. I was confused because it was supposed to be about expenses and child support, Furlett told the Chicago Sun-Times about the virtual court hearing, which took place earlier this month. So they weren't even arguing
about custody.
It was about money.
And the judge took it upon himself to say, you can't see your son again until you're vaccinated.
One of the first things he asked me when I got on the Zoom call was whether or not I was vaccinated, which threw me off because I asked him what it had to do with the hearing. He says, I'm the judge and I make the decisions for your case.
Jesus. What a power trip.
Furlett's lawyer, A. Fernholz, said she had filed legal challenge to the state appellate court, noting that the boy's father had not been seeking such a ruling. Quote, the trial court clearly exceeded its authority in suspending the mother's parenting time when the issue before the court was child support, Fernholz said in a statement. Quote, the mother did not know her parenting time was being discussed when she went to Zoom court. The judge deprived her of notice and a full hearing on the issue. Furlett, who has not said she will get the vaccine, told the judge her decision was not to take, or her decision was not to take it, her decision not to take it was not political. I have adverse reactions to vaccines in the past, and I was advised not to get vaccinated by my doctor, she says. It poses a risk. Her son, she said, was upset. Her son was upset. I think it's wrong, she says.
Thank you, Judge, for making my son upset.
I think it's dividing families, and I think it's not in my son's best interest to be away from her mother. A spokesperson for Cook County Circuit Court said the judge could not comment. Jeffrey, leaving attorney for the father, Matthew Duvian, said they supported the ruling. Of course, the father supports the ruling. Now he has full custody, I guess. While this is believed to be the first time a judge has used non-vaccination as a punitive measure, others have dangled the coronavirus shot as an incentive or a reward. I think we've probably talked about this on the show.
We've covered a few different judges, Ohio and New York, who have mandated shots for people getting probation, for instance, or I think one on a bail condition.
One was pre-release, I think.
Yeah. Offenders in several dozen minor criminal cases in Georgia have been offered shorter sentences return for getting vaccinated. In New York, judges have been requiring vaccinations clauses in certain plea agreements or for defendant seeking bail. So
all of it's inappropriate. I mean, the idea that these judges should be your doctor. I mean, this judge taking the position of this woman's doctor and saying, no, your doctor, we're just going to forget about what he said because, he's your doctor and he knows you and he's got a history with you. No, we're just going to throw that out and I'm going to tell you what to do.
And it's not just this judge. I mean, it's all you superstars out there getting on your TikToks or your Instagram or whatever, telling people to get the jab. Just get the jab. Just roll up the sleeve and get the jab. And it's like, you don't know me. Mm-hmm. You don't know my health. You don't know what my doctor has told me. You need to get off of that. The same thing with you, Fauci. All you guys. You don't know.
Hey, jump on the bandwagon.
We're being told on Twitch that which you can find at twitch.freetalklive.com, that the judge had to reverse his decision.
Good.
Because of the media and the pushback about this.
Good. That's exactly. This is here. Here we are talking about this and making a point about it and blowing it up because this is ridiculous. This is tyranny. You can't do this. He should not only should he reverse his decision, he needs to be fired.
That ain't gonna happen.
I would agree. I mean, he drastically overstepped his political power. He's clearly on a power trip saying, I'm the judge here. I'm the one who makes the decisions. Are you vaccinated? And taking away custody of this woman, taking away this woman's right to access her son because she isn't vaccinated. And as Ian pointed out, her doctor told her to not get vaccinated. And the judge is saying, I'm the judge. I'm more powerful, more important, more knowledgeable.
That's a typical judge line. I mean, that's like what you would hear every judge in America say at some point if you hung out in their courtroom long enough when they were yelling at somebody they were mad at. I mean, that's so standard kind of, oh, well, you know, the Constitution doesn't apply here. This is my courtroom. I'm the judge.
I'm the judge, and I make the decisions for your case.
Yeah, I mean, that's always what these people do. It's just that most of the time you don't get media. Most of the time these judges are doing ridiculous things to people completely unsung. There's no one there to report on it. I mean, half the time in family court, the courts are closed, right? Like, you can't go in and watch a lot of family court hearings.
Well, now but maybe we've moved into new territory. This is a Zoom call. This is something that could have been recorded. Oh, they don't let you record things either. They don't like that. That's the first thing they tell you is you better not have your recorders on. But at least it's open to, like, your hearings. All of the Crypto 6. There were hundreds of people in those rooms.
The one upside to, I mean, there's not a lot of bright spots when it comes to COVID, but that is one of the few, is that now you can see what's going on inside courts that otherwise you would have had to physically go to and put yourself at risk.
And not just courts too, but like city meetings and local bureaucracies. You're right. If there's one good thing that has happened, there's been a little more transparency and a little more. It's become easier to monitor what the emperor with no clothes has been actually up and doing.
There may be more transparency, but there's even less that you can do about it.
Yep.
Because you can't go to a lot of these.
Well, we can do what we're doing right now. We can talk about it, and we can get the media to lambast these judges, and make them think about what they really did and who actually is paying their check. It's us. We're paying this guy.
You probably get better turnout with these digital hearings as well, because people don't have to leave their homes to actually go to the court and deal with,
And they can attend from anywhere instead of just the local area.
Yeah. Another benefit is that they all skip the please rise for the honorable judge whatever thing. There's no ceremony when the judge connects, so that's a benefit. We're out of time for tonight, though. You can check us out in the meantime. You should join our social media server. Get away from the censorship that we talked about earlier. Get away from Twitter deciding you shouldn't be able to organize a protest. You can find that at social.freetalklive.com. Again, social.freetalklive.com.
If you want to know the latest about Free Talk Live before we go on the air, all you need to decide is how you want it delivered. It's your choice. Visit news.freetalklive.com.